Here we go, boys and girls. I believe we are live with Just a Walking Fish, Immutable Destiny, and Speed of Sound. And we're listening to Dan talk to Smokey on his channel. So
yeah,
we don't know what else we're going to do, but Saturday night at the Atheist with the rabid raccoon. Did you see it?
No.
With the rabid raccoon. What happened with the rabid raccoon?
I have an icon of a rabid raccoon. He is an atheist friend of mine. And you know how rabid atheists are.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you get a chance, see my icon. I'm rather proud. Okay. Roll?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I'm pretty glad that, like, they're having what seems like a pretty productive conversation because, you know, as I watched part of his Smokey's pre-debate thing about Erica, and it didn't really seem like he had the firmest grasp on evolution. It just seemed like, you know, he had Maddox whispering in his ear. So I am kind of glad that, like, he's actually, you know, listening and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of miss having calm conversations with Smokey, I guess. I mean, it happened so quickly. I really am still kind of like wondering what happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
I said Nirvana and everything went to hell after that, and I'm not sure how that happened, but anyway. Okay, we'll listen to this for a minute.
The equivalent of buying one lottery ticket and like, hey, look at that, I happen to win. It's you've bought every lottery ticket and one of them happened to be the winning ticket, but like, duh, you had all the tickets. So that is a common problem with this math, is that it ignores the parallel nature of it, that you're not trying one thing at a time iteratively, you're trying an uncountable number of things simultaneously.
Well, but even then, if you want to crack out the number of probabilities that way, you're still way outside the realm of mathematical.
Well, so my point here though is that it cannot happen naturalistically argument that Ross and Rana make for like the first cells, for example, is that they're not doing the math right. And if they want to like actually make that argument, they need to consider the actual way that these processes would have worked.
Well, let me put it this way, just to backtrack it. There's a certain, and I'd probably have to go back and get all the numbers for each one of these, but it doesn't matter. I can kind of make the point.
No, they're big numbers. I mean, the specifics.
But let me give them in their context though, because it's not like it's just like one big number.
No, it's like more than atoms in the universe or something like that.
Yeah, but like you have the lowest probability chance that you even get the amino acids to begin with, that you even get the ones that you need to use to basically do life. You get those ones that happen to be all left-handed. You get those ones that happen to be, you go down and down the line. Then you get the information that we don't know where that came from to actually assemble them into something functional, so on and so forth. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's when you stack the improbable on top of the improbable on top of the improbable. Even if you give it like so many of these pockets, I guess is a way to put it. These pockets that are all doing the same thing. They're all rolling the proverbial dice, and all of them are trying to get all sixes. And one of them, not even one of them, several of them have to get all sixes at the same time, and then they meet together to make something functional.
That's where we disagree, I think.
Okay.
Because what I think is the case is that a lot of the living things, a lot of the characteristics of living things as they exist on Earth right now.
Well, let me stop you real quick before you go on this, because this will clarify a lot for me if you can answer this. Do you think the components of the cell evolved separately? Like, sorry, no, hold on. Let me rephrase. Do you think the equipment, each one of the little things in the cell, even down to the flagellum, did all of it evolve in its own evolutionary path and then kind of meet, to kind of be something useful, or was it something much simpler and it just kind of developed these things over time type stuff?
So there are the answer to abiogenesis, and I'm taking my time with this because I have a very detailed answer to this question of what I think happens and how it works.
Well, no, take your
But
time and take as much time as you like.
Well, the very detailed version is an hour-long lecture that I do.
Okay, well,
so you
don't do that
probably
to
don't
me.
want that version. Right? You probably don't want that.
No, I don't
version.
want that
But
here. Do a video and send me a link, okay?
The short version is this. I think so. There's an ongoing debate about whether these processes would have been. I don't want to say cell first, but
I do have a quick
first,
question.
like
Have they already
first,
talked about evolution and stuff,
metabolism
or
first?
have they just been talking
And
about
for a long
abiogenesis this whole time?
Like going
Yeah,
back to, you're probably familiar with the Miller-Urey experiments from like.
Oh,
What's
I
that?
said, have they just been talking about abiogenesis this whole time, or have they talked at all about like evolution?
They talked about philosophy at first a little bit, and Smokey didn't want to talk about evolution, and then they started talking about abio.
Okay.
And Faz Rana and this Hugh Ross, which are Smokey's favorite authors, and
Yeah.
Dan had read them, and he is not impressed with their numbers. So
Yeah, I hope Smokey does end up talking to Dr. Dan about evolution at some point. Because
I don't think it's not going to help much. There's some closed doors there that are kind of interesting in themselves. I think they'll come out pretty quick.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like he just has like very basic misconceptions about evolution. Like he doesn't understand that evolution is just inherently change of allele frequency over time. So therefore, like selective breeding is still evolution. And, you know, things like niche partitioning aren't selective breeding. That's just adaptation. You know, that's Darwinian like selection right there. So I think he has some very like basic misconceptions that I feel like having a conversation with Dr. Dan would help clear up. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, you got a lot of faith. I don't have so much faith anymore. So who is One Way?
One Way is also an apologist that's kind of similar in the attitude to Smokey.
Okay.
Okay.
They aren't the same people, maybe. I don't know.
Could be. It's probable.
Yeah. I just don't think that there's any budging any of these people. I guess I'm slipping into despair in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've been a little bit not disenfranchised. That's not the right word. I've been maybe like dissuaded, but I also think, you know, the people, if we're having these like open conversations, the people we're not going to convince the actual apologist. Like, you know, standing for truth, I think he's a smart guy, but I don't think anything we could say would ever convince him. No. We could show him a tape recording of like Tiktaalik crawling out of the water, and he wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, right.
But I think the people who are more borderline, the people that are sitting on the fence, are the ones that can actually be convinced. Because that's where I was for a long time, you know?
Yeah, there's an audience out there that, you know, that can be convinced, but there's the kind of like the main clutch, the characters you see show up every night.
Yeah. They
are just beyond any sort of reason at all, as far as I can see. Like we had this talk with who the hell was it? I can't remember his name, but it was on my channel. Or he commented on my channel, and he was talking about James Tour, and I made the comment that why would I listen to James Tour? Why would I listen to one doctor when 9,999 doctors are telling me I have cancer and I need treatment? One doctor tells me I'm not, James Tour. And he said, no, James Tour is like one of a handful of people that are qualified to comment on this. And it's like, no, there are tens of thousands of people working on these problems. And you can't reason with that if they insist. And Anthony Maurice, same thing. Why won't you listen to a PhD, James Tour? Are you a PhD? It's like, well, if there was a consensus, I guess, you know, I would think maybe I'm wrong about some of my ideas, but I don't see that consensus. So
yeah. James Tour is the 1 out of 10 dentist that does not recommend Colgate.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Going on.
Yep.
The 1950s, like going back to them, the idea has been it's structures first. So you get like what is a very simple cell-like structure,
Right.
and then you build functions on top of that.
Okay.
But the newer idea, and the idea that I think is more likely to be valid, and this is based on like both observations of what we see in places that are representative of what we think a very old Earth would have been like hydrothermal vents,
Right.
and also laboratory experiments, is what I think is more likely is that it's a reactions first situation where you have what are called metacycles, where you've got different molecules that are interacting and reacting and catalyzing reactions with each other.
Okay.
And basically you're having energy being pumped in from the environment, either through volcanism or geothermal activity or solar radiation or whatever. You have energy being pumped in,
Okay.
and that's basically being stored in molecules, and then they are discharging that energy through a series of chemical reactions. And then over time, those things become compartmentalized. And the way that happens is that compartmentalization is a positive feedback loop for stability. And if you're more stable, you are necessarily going to persist in the environment for a longer time. And that is basically selection, is all that is. You just do better than the other things that are around. So over time, you become more common. And what we're seeing experimentally in terms of things like polymers that just form is that like you can randomly assemble. I shouldn't say randomly assemble. You can generate random polymerization of amino acids or like ribonucleotides, RNA bases, and you end up with stuff that has like biochemical activity. And the question is, how big do those pools have to be before you push the snowball down the hill and now it's just a runaway thing? And that gets around problems like the chirality problem, right? The left versus right-handed problem.
Right.
All you need is just like a little bit of bias at the front end. And I think it's happenstance. I always forget whether amino acids are right and left and the nucleotides are the opposite. I always forget which is which. But all you need is a little bit of bias at the very beginning. And then that takes off in a positive feedback loop where the ones that work become the dominant form. And I think there's no reason why you need to have life that uses the 20 amino acids or the 4 bases in nucleic acids that we do. I don't think you need life to use left-handed amino acids and right-handed nucleic acids. Or
Who does that sound like, Immutable?
Sounds like me.
Yeah, and me. Dan was talking about his, he's basically proposing metabolism first and a sort of a chemical soup rather than cells forming and all of that. And he was talking about it on Dapper Dino's channel today. And so he's very much in tune with what we were talking about with, there's no chirality problem. But it's kind of neat, this positive feedback loop. If you end up with just a little bit of bias, a feedback loop will basically coalesce into one thing or another. And that's very interesting because that's how dynamical systems work. And those are the theories that we need for abiogenesis. Not this bullshit of, it's, let's say a ribosome is, 3,000 amino acids long, the whole structure. So 20 to the 3,000th power is
whatever
has to randomly happen, right? It's just, but it just seems like not too many of these creationists and religious people are thinking like that. I mean,
yeah, doesn't seem like it.
But they claim they're so logical and rational, yet you can't reason with them on it. I mean, well, we'll see where this goes. We'll see if Dan is able to punch a hole in this.
Whichever it is for us.
Oh, I think
I think the other options work just fine, and it just happened to be that what we have was the first thing that worked.
Yeah.
And there is evidence for that, but I've been talking a while, so it's
okay. I kind of think there is. I've read someone. I think even LPP read it too. I think he mentioned.
Oh, well, we all know how well LPP reads.
If we were built, not homochiral with all the left-handed amino acids, like we would actually like explode, like spontaneously combust. Like there's some LPP. If you know where that paper is,
I actually think I know what he's talking about.
Okay.
It's a thing called hang on. It's called what's the word for it? It's autocatalysis, where it's almost like a matter-antimatter reaction.
Okay.
Where you have like a left-handed and a right-handed.
If any matter and matter would interact, it would be just
it's kind of like that.
Okay.
But that gets at my point though, because that's a mechanism to arrive at homochirality. Because if you have a slight imbalance in terms of what forms spontaneously, then the overlapping portion will neutralize each other, and then you're left with a homochiral of that leftover. So that's actually a mechanism that gets you to homochirality.
So you're saying like if it was I'm going to try to simplify this. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if it was like an environment where a whole bunch more left-handed than right-handed happened to emerge, then the right-handed would attack the left-handed, so to speak, and leave over still left-handed. Yeah, I mean that's what you're saying,
right? And is it okay if I do a screen share? Because I actually have a picture.
Oh yeah,
of
sure.
This,
yeah, no, if you can.
That actually, I think does a pretty cool job. Here we go. Let me
bring yours up. And I'll be able to put it up. If you need audio, make sure to check the.
What's that?
It might be the paper I was looking at last night.
The link that John gave goes to. Let me see here. What is CNEN? C, the letter C, ampersand EN, free weekly newsletter. What is this analysis? Okay, new evidence against the popular theory about life's preferences for chirality. So I'm not sure what this is exactly. You might also like chemists ponder benzene jailbirds. Interesting. I don't know what this is. CNN analysis.
Just do any idea live chat or private chat rather?
I can. Let's see here. See, I can put it. I'll put it in chat. Chat. What's wrong with chat? Okay. There you go.
Thanks.
So, new evidence for tiny energy advantage of one isomer, likely not enough to push biological molecules all one way. So, this is sort of a pushback against what Dan is saying. And this is from 2019. And I don't know what the Chemical and Engineering News is where it is.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
The audio box, otherwise.
No, it's just going to be a PowerPoint slide. Just be real easy. Just a second here. Here you go. Yeah, we'll go with that. Here you go. So, that. So this figure right here. So you could ignore the text on the left. That doesn't matter. What matters is this figure right here.
Okay.
And what you're seeing is an initial imbalance, right here, where it's a little bit more left than right. And then they cancel out. But you continue forming at that slight imbalance. So over time, you end up with almost entirely left. And then you could just continue that reaction onwards for however long. And so if you have like for example, we know that solar radiation can be polarizing. If you have polarizing radiation that is leading to the formation of one over the other preferentially, and then you have this type of reaction, you're going to end up with what is essentially a homochiral solution.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. That's something educational. I'll look into that. We might have a very, very special guest coming on our show at some point here this month. So
James
stay
Tour.
tuned if you just go on camp, Dan. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I will. I'm subscribed now, so I'll be watching.
Beautiful.
I would love to see James Stewart talk about intelligent design.
You have it opened up.
I wonder what his viewing rate is.
I just mean I feel like James Stewart, he's just a public educator. I feel like he'd be down to come on to something like this if he's not busy. But at the same time, I hope, him and John Maddox are in a room and they start talking about ribosomes or something.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, there's no way life could have evolved naturally. Because obviously James Stewart, I think he subscribes to either theistic evolution or evolutionary creationism or something. So the only problem that he really has with the theory of common descent is just that he doesn't know if abiogenesis could have happened spontaneously.
Yeah.
He has some issues with the theory of evolution in terms of mechanisms accounting like for certain things, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Anyway, okay. So we could do something else.
Yep, I guess so.
We could. Or not. Let me see what I got here. Coming soon. After show. We got the after show again. Let's see. Top chat replay. Where's high chat replay? Guts that Given got on. Let's see. 23 code.
Ooh. Idiot atheist, there are new rules. Read the description.
Oh, did you read his thing? The new rules, basically?
What happened?
No, why don't we read them now?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I did not go on his show, because I didn't like the tone of this. So this is new rules. Is that showing up? Mods, please enforce. I am sick of coward, cockroach, keyboard warriors.
I wonder who he's talking about.
He's talking about us. Fuck. And then he goes on to talk about pick your poison, just all sorts of real bully type talk. And I decided that, my Saturday evening is fine without that kind of bullshit. I did talk about going on a show and talking to him about Nirvana. And what I wanted to ask him is why he went into a rage about Hitler in Nirvana when he knows that I'm an atheist and I don't believe in an afterlife. So, if I don't believe in an afterlife, why would I think Hitler was in one place or the other, hell or Nirvana? And how does his mind work? How does his mind fuck that up?
Well, go on in there. We can hold it down until.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm not talking to that.
Oh, come on. He's giving you a chance to defend yourself. And...
No, he isn't. That is not what this is about. That is not what this stream is about. His stream is about, you know what it's about. It's not about you defending yourself. Dan, this is just an introduction. Give it a couple of weeks and watch what evolves. I'm surprised it's lasted this long. Of course, I made it for a couple hours with Smokey before things devolved. I made it like 3 hours with him, so I don't know. Well, it devolved, I guess, when I refused to listen to him when he warned me not to do a comeback video when they were misrepresenting me and talking shit about me. And I refused to not defend myself because Smokey said, I'm warning you, don't defend yourself. Let us, sit and pick on you. Well, you know what I say about that? I said it in my weather report about 5 times today. You guys probably didn't watch that part.
No, I saw it. I'm just not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, well, what I said was, fuck you, Smokey.
Yeah.
About 3 times anyway, I'm sure I said it. It's just, come on, dude. He's about 20 years younger than me. Show a little fucking respect. To Grandpa Mike. Okay, let's see. Let's go to this after show. There's some goodies, but this after show goes on, and we can just pick around and see what you find. Come up with something, or you guys want to talk about A-Bio, or that seems to be that's getting a lot more heat lately from the camp.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting because I've been on the sidelines for this discussion for quite a while. I think it's interesting how certain arguments circulate for short periods of time and then they just disappear for a bit. Do you remember when the dinosaur soft tissue was just everywhere?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Raw Matt tried to bring it back last week.
Really?
He ran another video on it. Yeah. He was working on it.
But I just feel like certain arguments sort of come and go in waves. And then they wait until they think people have forgotten, then try to bring it back.
Yeah, then they double down. They haven't talked about ApoA1 Milano for a while.
Well, maybe it's next. Have a video ready just in case.
Well, I think I shut him down on that pretty well on Standing for Truth in the debate that he insists I lost totally. and they could not make a point on this APOA1 Milano, because that is a real mutation that had an advantage. Let's see. Remember to share the audio. I did. Okay. So we got this thing. So I don't know. Let's see. Where were we? Dr. Dan Enter, MD. So we went through that stuff, and then I think I went ahead to. I think this is where Gutsick Gibbon comes in.
Did y'all get all the way to where Dr. Dan leaves?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh no, we never did we?
Because like right at the end, that was the. Oh shit! Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we got to the part where C. Brown started talking, and then I just had to.
So yeah, that was
things.
what really pissed me off. Whenever Smokey asked, like, is there anything that would like, or is there any predictions evolution made that would like falsify it or something like that? Like the question was along those lines. And he said heritability of the genotype. And then I guess for some reason, John Maddox, he hadn't said something in a while. So he was like, well, what he said something about the biochemistry. And, obviously in this situation, the biochemistry didn't matter. And then John Maddox started freaking out. And that pissed me off. Like I talked to Dan about it afterwards, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever seen a real life quote mine or like a live quote mine or something?"
Yeah,
that was.
So I wonder where that was. Where did we leave off last time?
I'm not an expert on the bone side of things. I'm more on the molecular side. And if you would like to,
if the bones ain't lining up, if the bones are lining,
I think we went past C. Brown, right?
Yeah, it's just
if there had been no mechanism of transmitting from parent to offspring phenotypic variation, then that would have falsified evolution.
Sideways variation.
Wait. How? No, I'm sorry. Explain that a little bit. I don't understand that.
If I can take just a minute, because this goes all the way back to Darwin. So the idea is that you have variation within a population.
Did we cover this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So do you know where the part is that you're talking about?
It's right here.
Okay.
Right. Some things have big beaks, some things have small beaks, whatever, just to use the finch example.
I mean, Athena Goddess of Wisdom's asking to come in.
What's that?
Saying Athena Goddess of Wisdom's asking to come in. That's Midnight Sparkles, right?
He's not on the thing. He's not in the back room.
Hold on.
Yeah, he was asking for a link.
Oh, I sent him a link.
Did you?
I did.
Are you sure?
I know I did.
I'm skeptical.
Don't be skeptical.
I am skeptical.
I know what I'm doing.
No.
Yeah.
I just gave him the link, so he should be in soon.
Okay. Well, I was just going to send him a link. Hang on. No, you've distracted me.
Sorry.
Well, it's not my fault.
Well, I'm not watching that screen. I'm watching the left screen, so got to know when he gets in. Okay, so
With the way natural selection works is that the things that have the traits that are best are going to have more kids, right? So if there's a drought, there's lots of big nuts.
hello. We're just watching wreckage.
Yeah, are you watching Maddox make a fool of himself?
What else is new?
Yep. That's what we do here. Maddox, he's like a barrel of monkeys, just endless fun.
But fewer smaller seeds, then the big beaked finches are going to survive more because there's more food for them and they're going to have more kids. And over time, you're going to expect that population to be more big beaked, right? We're talking just over a few generations, right?
But that's kind of assumption of what the pressure is, right? You're just assuming what the environment
in that example, we know because we watched that happen in the 70s and 80s. So it's not an assumption, but it's just hypothetical. It doesn't matter
the beak modifications, are those...
Doesn't matter.
How were they expressed? Were those genetic modifications?
Oh, this is a good part. This is epigenetics.
I know.
Really is not the actual cause of what you argue in relation to evolution.
Guys,
what caused the beak change?
I'm giving you an explanation for how evolution could have been falsified Like,
I
the
feel
example
like my
doesn't matter.
whole
Use height in
DNA
giraffes.
I
Use
feel like my whole
purple
thing-
versus green aliens. It doesn't matter what the example is. It's
Dan-
just a hypothetical example.
quick question.
Well, let me finish the thing, because I'm going to answer your question, though. And if there was no mechanism where if you had a big beak, then your offspring had big beaks, if it was random,
Okay.
then the population couldn't evolve, right? That would falsify evolution by natural selection. So that's how that works. It doesn't, like, the biochemical mechanism doesn't matter. It was a falsification.
Whoa. Did you say the biochemical mechanism does not matter
Yes.
in relation to? Oh, are you kidding me? Are you serious?
John.
You're dismissing what the
Here's where the idiot doesn't understand what the conversation was, and he's got to inject his bullshit.
Yeah, maybe you saw Smokey like slipping away to actually hearing something that made sense for once. Yeah, this really pissed me off because, all right, we didn't have any understanding of genetic patterns of inheritance until like 30 or 40 years after Darwin had published On the Origin of Species. I mean, Mendel had been doing his work about the same time, but it wasn't accepted until like the late 1890s, early 1900s, right? So there's like a 30, 35-year gap where we don't know anything about inheritance. So as soon as you find out what the inheritance patterns are, dominant, recessive, that kind of stuff, you're confirming his prediction. And then we doubly confirmed it when in the 60s, when we showed that DNA is what actually stored the genomic information.
Right.
But like, it wouldn't have mattered. It could have been stored in the proteome, right? Sure, why not? It still would have been stored, and we still would have seen patterns of inheritance. Okay, whatever.
Right. Yeah. I think the creationist favorite thing is this new finch thing that came out where there was some rapid speciation.
The big bird's finch or whatever with like
yeah,
the hybridization.
Yeah, there was something new, and I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, there was a new species that was it came from a hybridization event from two separate species, because one finch from a neighboring island, it was called like Big Bird, he accidentally flew into a different island and managed to have offspring. And because that offspring just had like a different reproductive strategy, they became reproductively isolated. And they consider that a speciation event, because now it's established this new line of finches that don't have like admixture.
So you're telling me Big Bird flew to another island and got raped?
No, Big Bird was a male.
Oh. Okay. Well, I don't know if that's any better, but
no.
Okay. So, but do they know what happened to the genome to modify the beak? I mean, have they worked out the genes, the embryology?
I have no clue. I don't think the Big Bird finch line, that wasn't established based on beak structure. I don't think. I think that was just established based on like it's genetically isolated, right?
Okay, I think Maddox is going to try to make the point that if they went back to an island with small nuts, that the beak would shrink because of epigenetics. I'm pretty sure that's where he's going, but we'll listen.
How were they expressed? How were those genetic modifications?
Hypothetically, use anything you want. Use antibiotic
In
resistance.
well, you're using an example that literally is not the actual cause of what you argue in relation to evolution.
Guys,
what caused the beak change?
Okay, I think I went back too far.
I'm giving you an explanation. Use height in giraffes. Use just a hypothetical example.
Quick question.
Well, let me finish the thing, because beak evolved, right? That would falsify evolution by natural selection. So that's how that works. It doesn't, like, the biochemical mechanism doesn't matter. It was a falsification.
Whoa. Did you say the biochemical mechanism does not matter in relation to? Oh, are you kidding me? Are you serious?
John,
you're dismissing what the cause was?
John, the question was on.
Are you no? Seriously, as a evolutionary biologist, are you dismissing whether or not it is a biochemical function that caused the modification, and John, where that biochemical modification was? Are you dismissing that?
The question was falsified.
Are you dismissing that? Because you just dismissed it. So are you dismissing it as a PhD evolutionary biologist? Are you dismissing the biochemical
biologist is, but okay.
So do you think maybe he sat on something and got something crossed way up his ass the morning of this?
It may not have been an accident.
He is in fine form here as far as being a dick. don't understand.
What the modification was that resulted in the outcome? Yes or no?
For this question, yes, it doesn't matter. For the question of falsifiability,
Holy shit! Are you
question
serious?
was you need to have
Are
a
you
genetic
freaking? Are you
mechanism.
kidding me, dude? You actually have? Oh
Yes.
my! Wow!
For the
My
question of
mind is blown right now,
falsifiability, you
dude.
need to
My
have
mind is
genetic
absolutely
mechanism.
blown. Okay, so
Yeah.
you don't think that all the issues with with like okay, never mind.
That's the only thing we've ever agreed on.
We're gonna have to have a more in-depth conversation
I
about
don't
this.
know,
Like,
I don't know.
my mind is actually blown that you actually stated that.
But
I
it's
would
still
love
sideways
to see
anyway.
if anybody else has
Last
the same
thing.
issue, because I think everyone else probably got it.
Last thing.
How about in the live
Sideways
chat? Everyone getting what I'm
variation.
saying here in the live chat? Everyone
Sideways
hearing me?
variation is not evolution,
If you
Dan.
have a look, we're
that
just
mean?
talking about the falsifying evolution by natural selection. That was the
But that's
question.
not evolution. It's
giving
not
you
even
an
Okay,
evolution.
so per your model, does
Not even.
evolution by natural selection require biochemical modification? Yes or no?
That's not the question that's on
Yeah,
the table.
yes. What is natural selection? What is evolution through natural selection? What is the fundamental root requirement for it to occur? Which
Okay, guys, can you comment a little bit and fill some dead air space? You know what I got to go do?
Yeah, you got to the raccoon.
Yeah.
I'm being attacked by raccoons again.
Yeah. Okay, this is the point that it just really pissed me off, because this is where like John Maddox basically just starts whipping up everybody else, and then the situation completely explodes. Oh God!
Imagine Maddox just not knowing how to control himself and just completely trying to get the conversation in the direction where he wants it to go.
Yeah, I mean, like, his mic is so much louder than everyone else's. I feel like he's using that to like direct conversation to where he wants it to go.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
Do I have that option? Can I do that to you guys?
I don't know, actually.
That's
Can
a
you?
good idea. How's my new mic, by the way?
It sounds pretty good.
Sounds
What'd
fine.
Well, I pulled the Rode out of the other room, and I finally got it tuned up, so it was real low before. So, okay.
I was gonna say apparently Midnight left because he had a headache.
Oh,
Well, could have said something, but okay.
could have said goodbye.
Let's chill.
Yeah. Anyway,
changes the outcome? What changes the outcome?
Phenotypic variation.
somebody, was that you guys or no? That wasn't you guys.
No, that wasn't
What?
it.
No.
Okay. Green light.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the phenotypical variation? What causes that?
Genetic variation.
Okay, and what causes genetic variation? Is it
Changes in DNA sequence.
Mistakes.
yeah? Okay, and what is DNA? What is the DNA sequence composed of?
He's fighting it. He's fighting it the whole way.
What is it
You know where
composed
you're
of,
going.
Dan?
Like, I don't know what you're-
My mind is
like, I don't
absolutely
know what
blown. Are you? Do you actually operate from such a high superficial level in a theory? You're not
I
actually
don't-
thinking about the
I
requirements
genuinely don't
on the
understand
root
what
level?
you're getting at, because the question was, how would evolution be falsified? And there's lots of ways that
I
that
asked you
could
I asked you a
And
direct
one
question that has
example-
nothing to do with that. I asked you a direct question of
No,
you
but that's-
he was answering
brought up
Smokey's
evolution through natural selection. I asked you directly what is happening per your model in evolution through natural selection. We went down the rabbit hole, which is to modification in.
That's such a good quote, though.
What's that?
He said, "I cannot run fast enough to catch these goalposts, John."
I didn't catch that one. But,
Good line.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's talking about the rabbit hole again.
Yeah. Well, he was answering Smokey's question,
Right.
and John just starts screaming to make sure that he can't.
Right.
And he keeps shifting what John is actually even talking about.
And John actually thinks he's making a really powerful point here,
Yeah.
It'd be the first time that John thinks.
It's just he's just being such an asshole in this point, right? And
I know.
it's crazy to me. Like, this is what was blowing my mind at the time. Like, we're the people that are supposed to be like fucking eating babies or some shit.
Yeah.
Yet this is what we're dealing with. I have yet to see the atheist side being the ones to make a conversation turn disrespectful or
Right.
vitriolic or anything like that. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, this one really, really irritated me. I think this was the beginning of my trip down the road of despair as far as dealing with. I mean, it was shortly after this that I decided I really don't want to debate him. I don't want to talk to him. I want to talk about him. because they're just not worth it. What the? Anyway, we'll go
Answer
on.
your question. Did I answer your question about falsifiability? Did that
Yeah,
exactly?
this is the ultimate dodge, dude. This is the ultimate dodge I have ever come across, and you talk about us not making solid arguments.
Yeah.
You have literally dodged the ultimate root of evolutionary
Do you
theory.
even understand? Do you even understand that you need billions of bits of programming that's not there, Dan?
Yeah.
How are you going to get?
To get a beak, to change a beak.
Actually, Dan's supposed to be talking to Jungle Jargon sometime within the next 2 or 3 days. I'm pretty excited to hear that.
Yeah, I would.
Because, yeah, I feel like since Jungle Jargon doesn't really have his own channel, he mostly like talks on John's channel or like with other people. So I'm interested to see like what's actually at the core of his beliefs, right?
I think it's going to be on Smokey's channel.
Oh, is it actually? I thought it was on.
It's going to be a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, I had a pretty good talk with Jungle Jargon. Actually, it was fairly peaceful. I was surprised.
That's good.
Yeah, so I'm hoping the same for Dan, but
Billions of bits of programming that's not there, Mr. Biologist, PhD.
The question was about falsifiability.
No. Answer the question. Answer the question.
Are you asking me about abiogenesis?
It's time to go. It's time to go, yeah.
I think the point, Dan, was that I don't see how that would have ever falsified evolution.
Well, if you let me explain it, John, without interrupting me with some irrelevant tangent, I can answer your question.
He set up a straw man off rip.
So the answer to
who's setting up a straw man here?
Is that in order for
do they know what a
evolution to
straw
occur,
man is?
You need heritable phenotypic variation, and you need differential, non-random survival and reproduction, right? So the things that are best adapted have the most kids, and the kids look like the parents that were best adapted. They have the same traits. Now, if there is no genetic mechanism by which those traits would propagate to the next generation, that falsifies evolution.
That's so sad.
Can I stop? Okay, you've answered my question. What would be in the theory that would falsify naturalistic evolution? There we go. Let's try that.
Naturalistic evolution. So what would falsify? So I'm not actually sure, because I know creationists have come up with a lot of attempts to do that, and I mean irreducible.
Now this is Smokey's main point. He wants to falsify naturalism and prove God using that.
Yep.
And that's become clear in listening to him for the last few weeks. And if you counter him on that and you come up with an argument for naturalism, you are in the shitter with him after that. He just will not talk to you.
Keep in mind, though, too, that this argument has to be deductive.
Yeah.
Which anybody that does science knows that.
And right now in Smokey's mind, it's all about those numbers that Maddox pulled from the back of Kunin's book in his appendix.
Well, something I think is interesting, like there's no scientific problems with evolutionary creationism, right? But from these people's perspective, there's obviously theological problems with it. Like evolutionary creationism as in like the idea that evolution occurred as we know it, but it was directed by a god. That's not falsifiable. That's not even in the realm of science. All we can say is here's what happened. We can't say we can't make any claims with certainty about why it happened. You know what I mean?
Right. I was all excited that I was going to go on Smokey's channel and I was going to give him this little analogy that if you had an artist friend and he threw some paint on a canvas and then he started moving his brush around and he did that for, half an hour and he ended up this wonderful picture, this landscape. But then you had another artist friend who just threw the paint on the canvas and the paint dripped down and formed a picture. Which one had more skill? So it's like, the God that basically created the Big Bang to result in life, to me, would be a more poetic God. He just threw it out there and he, in such a way that it would self-build.
Yeah.
And that would be completely compatible with all of science, and the war is over. But these guys, I think They want the war for some reason. They have some belief that that they're fighting this battle.
Mm-hmm.
With
Smokey believes. I'm suspecting that Smokey believes that this may be an opportunity to bring people to the faith. That if you can show them that naturalism is wrong, well, that's going to make them that's going to destroy everything else that they have ever done in their life and make them convert to God.
I guess that is the problem. They, in their heart of hearts, they know that God wasn't needed at all. You know, that if naturalism is true, then they are kind of screwed, and they have nothing to leverage people into the faith. But I mean, that's ridiculous. There are other things about that faith, or, you know, basically religion and faith, that are adequate, I think, to keep your believers, but they don't believe it. They want, you know, they want that slam dunk. You have to believe.
Yeah. Something that's kind of interesting to me is that I feel like if more Christians took the theistic evolutionist route, it would be mutually beneficial for pretty much everybody. Or at least it would be for me. I really don't care what like your metaphysical beliefs are, you know, as long as you're not, like I said, I've said this a couple times, but like as long as you're not using those to justify things like bigotry or, you know, pseudoscience, that kind of stuff. I really don't care what you believe.
Right.
And, you know, the reason that people my age are leaving Christianity so much faster than in the past is because a lot of sects of Christianity are just refusing to modernize.
Yeah.
Right? Like nobody wants to be associated with homophobia or creationism or anything like that because, you know, you see that and you're like, oh my God, this is stupid. What else am I believing that's stupid?
Right.
You know, but if they were actually a little bit more willing to modernize, I feel like that would save more souls in the long run, I guess, from their perspective, right?
That's why they have so much venom for the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church laid down, they modernized. They basically laid down their, you know, not totally, but, you know, they've come a long ways. And with the Pope, you know, getting behind evolution and all of it, and staying out of the fight. They hate that.
And the thing is, too, is like Smokey's particular form of Christianity is like toxic as hell.
It is. And I've read a little bit between the lines and listened to some of his stuff, and it really is toxic. I mean, it's bullshit about just judging people, and, you know, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. And I think like there's an element of I'm the rightest person in the room. I have the high ground, the highest ground, and I'm looking down.
I wonder where you're getting that quote from.
What's that?
Said, I wonder where you're getting that quote from. Oh, I thought you were making like a Anakin, I have the high ground.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
I didn't see the connection. I don't know. Maybe it's rolling around in my mind because it's like, Jesus Christ, he got to be Obi-Wan. I want to be Obi-Wan. and he said I was Anakin. It's like, who decided that? Like when you're playing cops and robbers, I always have to be the robber. You know, it's just.
You know, there's some things that I've been thinking about, like from my past. And whenever I was little, like going to Sunday school and stuff, we would always play Romans versus Christians.
Oh,
and
wow.
You know, and I was just thinking about this the other day, and I was like, no wonder there's a Christian persecution complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it turned out that not that many Christians, or there possibly no Christians, were actually fed to lions.
Yeah, well, I mean, even then, like, I think it's a joke to say that, like, the U.S. hates Christians.
Yeah.
When we have...
Smokey believes that, genuinely.
Huh? Nobody believes that? Are you sure about that?
No. I said Smokey believes that.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said nobody. And I was like, come on down to Alabama, my guy.
No. I'll be okay. But
you can't get elected to any office if you're not a Christian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there's any openly secular Congress or like politicians, at least Congress people in the U.S. We have one or two Muslims, a handful of Jews, but like I think the closest we have is like Bernie, who he called himself a humanist at one point. When somebody asked him, he refused to sort of say like what his religious beliefs were.
Right.
But even then, like, you know, it's Christian persecution complex is a very interesting phenomenon, in my opinion.
Yeah. They do enjoy their nails. Okay. I want to hear the next
Complexity
one.
would, I think, do it. I
It's you
think
guys.
irreducible complexity would if it could be demonstrated.
Well, I think it kind of is with the flagellum, isn't it?
No, because there's flagella that are missing whole rings of those proteins, the different rotors. There are flagella that are missing whole components, and they still work fine.
Where is this?
In different prokaryotes, just I don't know off the top of my head. Like it's like
Maybe they was created. Maybe they was created like that. Perhaps.
Well,
maybe it wasn't created
maybe
the same
it was
way.
irreducible complexity.
Huh?
You can always go maybe.
What about that?
Right?
Are you guys? Did somebody say pause?
Maybe
No,
they were created to be inefficient. What about that, huh? You
Yeah.
thought about that?
Hello,
Yeah,
brain
it's
bug. I'm sorry.
The translation mechanism in prokaryotes is much simpler than eukaryotes, and God just created it that way because
Yeah.
Because why? I don't know. Why not use the same system? I don't know.
I'm still my mind is still blown. So what? So you just talked about heritable.
His mind is blown.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah, we knew that. So is he going to go back to Finch's?
Passing down heritable characteristics which result in it looking like something, right? What causes it to look like something on the genetic level?
What?
There are a bunch of
What does that
mechanisms.
mean?
Okay,
There's
and what are they?
changes to the gene. There's changes to the regular.
Okay,
gene.
and what constitutes a
There's
sequence of a
epigenetics.
gene?
There's lots of mechanisms.
And what constitutes a sequence of the gene?
Does he just want
What
him to say like
constitutes the
nucleotides?
sequence?
What's that?
Does he just really want him to say like nucleotides?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Dan. I was watching Dapper Dino stream earlier today. I'm pretty sure Dan does like active research in like cytosine. So I'm sure he knows a bit more about the bases than John Maddox.
Yeah. I don't know what he wants him to say here.
Yeah.
So the gene.
What are you really playing dumb now? What are
I'm trying to make sure
what are the
that,
components?
Like, I don't wanna,
What are the
like, what are you
what are
going for?
what are the physical components that make up the gene sequence?
Nucleotides?
Huh?
Nucleotides.
Okay, and what are those made out of?
Atoms. Are you just going all the way down to abiogenesis? Because if that's what
No,
you're doing,
I'm
just
talking.
get there.
No, I'm talking about you dismissing biochemical modification as being the ultimate root of evolution. That's what I'm calling you on.
But
you absolutely did dismiss
Dan,
it.
just say you
dismissed it
wrong.
multiple
Just say
times,
you
bro.
wrong. Just say that you're wrong. It's easier.
Yes,
Sorry,
you know,
guys.
falsification. It gave you an answer.
Okay,
and then went down
to
the rabbit hole
change a
about
gene
what
sequence,
DNA
what
is made of.
what's
Like,
required?
I don't.
What is required to happen in order for a gene sequence to change? What is a mutation? What is the result of a mutation per your model?
A change
Depends
in
on
the
the type of
DNA
mutation.
nucleotide sequence. That is what a mutation is.
Okay, so what is that?
What?
Is that a
It's
biochemical process? Is that a biochemical process? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So unless
Is that
that
a
has
gotcha
occurred,
question?
then you don't
I don't
have
know,
the like 17 layers up the food chain of, oh, it looks differently because the parents passed down and there was environmental pressures.
No,
Like, you
that's
have-
not.
Okay.
Oh my
so
god!
what in the hell is he talking about?
I don't know. He just really wants to make the whole him not saying biochemical reactions a gotcha when that wasn't even the point of his question. Once again, it didn't have to be DNA that stored our genome. That's what happened, but that's not what had to have like been the result of Fred Sanger. I think that's who discovered it. That wasn't an inevitable outcome.
What did he mean by 17 levels up the food chain?
You're asking Maddox to make sense.
Okay. Let's see if we can get a clue.
So account.
No, that's not.
You have to
That's
account
not how
for
evolution
what? No,
works,
you
man.
do. You're
It's
trying
not
to dodge me, man.
pre-adaptive.
You still have to account. Okay, the adaptation. How did the adaptation cause the chemical modification,
It
the
didn't.
biochemical
It didn't.
modification?
You have the sequence backwards.
Right.
It's about pre-existing variation.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
pre-existing
how the
variation.
sequence
It's a
backwards,
pre-existing
John.
variation. where did the pre-existing variation come from?
Mutations.
Okay.
You have it totally. Wait, John, hang on, everybody. Hang on. John, how do you think natural selection works?
No,
I'm
aware of how you guys say it works.
Do you
That's
think it's
not
like
the point I'm making.
there's only big nuts around. I need a bigger beak to eat these big. Like that's not how it works.
Lamarckianism.
Okay, yeah, and what do we know was the cause on the on the cellular level and the genetic level? What was causing the beaks to be bigger or smaller? Was it gene mutation or was it expression of?
I mean, it's both. It's never just one
so the
thing.
gene was the gene that made the genes that made the beak, the general beak structure. Those are the same in between the finches, right?
Sometimes, I mean, the alleles are going to be different. The same genes are governing it.
Did they discover, after looking at these stupid birds for 50 years, did they discover that the beak size modifications were the result of epigenetic factors, not gene mutation?
Okay, can I say something?
Both. There are different.
Yeah.
I looked it up, and most of the gene or the beak-shaped differences are due to different expression and mutations within the ALX1 gene, which is a homeobox gene.
Okay.
So that's what happened.
Yep. And he thinks that because they ate smaller seeds, that somehow that was the stress factor that caused an epigenetic modification and that it's reversible.
That's not what happened.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Alleles, and there are different epigenetics, and there's different regulatory patterns.
Specifically, we're talking about the beak. Okay,
Erica,
at the root, are they still finches? Yes or no?
Now if we're going to play the "is it still finches" question,
now I think he's trying to say that the genes are all the same.
So this is the point where Kent Hovind would ask a 5-year-old, right?
Where what?
So this is the point where Kent Hovind would ask a 5-year-old, right?
Oh yeah. Is it a finch? Is it still a finch? Amazing.
I mean, God, the goalposts are down the street by now.
No, are they still finches?
Oh my God!
Because we're only talking about
okay, so the modifications that are being claimed by the evolutionary crowd are that they've got bigger beaks and now they can eat bigger nuts, and the environment is what caused them to have bigger beaks.
The environment.
Oh my God, he really thinks that happens. And
actually, I would like to say, John, that they're not true finches. They're tangers, I believe is what they're called. Tanagers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because finches are native to Europe, and so they're descended from South American ancestors, right? So they're not true finches, but that's just a fact, I guess. That's like not super relevant.
But John actually thinks that because they had bigger nuts on the island, that caused an epigenetic change, that there was a direct line. And that could have happened, I guess, if they were under extreme stress, because stress will bring out epigenetic modification, and that, leads to all sorts of things, but not what happened.
Do you know how I have the paper that talks about the genetic differences between Darwin's finches.
Oh.
I just posted it in the live chat.
Oh, in private chat or live chat?
No, the live chat. It'll show up in a second.
Oh, do you have a wrench?
No, I don't have a wrench.
Actually, let's see. If you pull something, let's see. Brainbug. Who's Brainbug? Hi,
Brainbug. I don't know who actually he is, but I know he was shouted out by Guts It Given. I went over and followed him. He has bugs and brains.
Oh yeah, I've been to that site. Oh my God, I love this man. I have bugs here on my plate. He would like my bugs.
Were you? Oh, I thought you meant like you were eating them for a second.
What's that?
I thought you meant you were eating them for a second.
I was doing what?
I thought you said that like eating the bugs.
Oh no, not eating the bugs. No, I have 500 bugs on my tray here that I captured in the backyard. I look at every day under my microscope. I always look at 5 bugs a day. So, and Brainbug has a great site. Yep. So, yep. Let's see. What were we doing? We were doing something. Why am I losing it? Oh, you were going to post a paper. and you have to post something so I can give you. There you are. I can give you a wrench.
What is?
Wait a minute. Okay, I forgot how to do the wrench again. I have to go
you
to
just deleted both of my chats.
I did? No.
Try it again. That's the paper right there. Anyways, if anyone wants it, they can copy and paste it at the very least.
Let's see. I have to actually go to my site, right, and give you a wrench over there.
I think so. I always have the live streams pulled up in a different tab. That's just me though.
Yeah, I should do that anyway. Let's see here. Speed of sound. Okay. And it's going to make some noise. So now, okay, where are you? Just a walking fish.
Yeah. Well, also, I think at the end of the day, does it matter if it's epigenetic or genetic?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But if you tell that off, he'll lose his shit.
But if it's epigenetic, it wouldn't pass down likely for more than a couple generations if it did that. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Well, epigenetic markers can actually stay for a really long time as long as there's a benefit to having them, right? So huge regions of our genome are methylated. Pretty much every ERV that we have is extensively methylated, and that's been passed down since we got the ERVs, essentially.
Yeah. Why does StreamYard lag by chat? I mean, the chat appeared over live sooner than does Matt actually have anger issues? Yes, he does, and it's really concerning. I think he has a little bit of a bullying complex too.
I think he has a business complex.
Yeah.
Hopefully that time the link worked. It did. All right, cool.
Okay, there it is.
Anyways.
No, I can't even click on. Oh, I can click on it over here. So I got to go back to wherever I was. Where was I? What am I doing? What's happening? Okay. Okay, we're gonna go on.
Yep.
It's not. It was.
The environment didn't cause it, John.
Well, awesome. So then, did it have the pre-existing capacity to have a bigger or smaller beak?
No, it did not
pre-existing?
have the pre-existing capacity in the ancestral.
No, really? Well, then how do they switch back and forth then? How is it a known fact that the same birds of the same species can switch back and forth based on beak size as a result of that?
Boy, is he confused. I mean, isn't this great?
Yep.
So basically what he's saying is that a big organism that gives rise to a small organism can't give rise to a big organism again.
Yeah.
What?
Or he's saying they switch back and forth?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was what his argument was with the regards to the beak thing. He was saying if it's like genetic, then it's essentially permanent, and you're not going to have any mutations that would further increase the beak size, right? So like if you start with a big beak and then you get a mutation, it makes your beak smaller, you're not going to be able to make a bigger beak again for some reason.
No, I think he's saying that they can switch back and forth just automatically. That isn't he? Like
that's
from
what Matt actually trying to make.
That's what he's saying. But I think his point is that if it's genetic, that it
that you couldn't, yeah.
Which I don't know why.
Nothing could change it back. Yeah.
I think it's because a lot of creationists have this idea as well that genes can either only be in perfect shape or broken. There's no alternate alleles.
Yeah.
Like. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be genetic entropy. It has to be degradation. I mean, there isn't any way that it could go backwards.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like they see it as like it's an all or nothing thing, right?
Right.
You can't have a gene that's at 75% expression level, and you can't have a gene that's like, completely changed to a different allele and now has a different function, despite having the same focus or something. Even
though his favorite little nut in his squirrel cheeks is miRNA, which makes, which can modify a hell of a lot, basically. Yeah. And along with other RNAs.
Epigenetic variation.
So can I in for just a quick second? Because I was listening as someone externally for most of this. Also, by the way, Smokey, thank you again for the conversation. I absolutely, like I said, I had a great time, and I've been enjoying the conversation here as well. Maybe it's just me. I don't know if the chat feels the same way, but to my knowledge, I interpreted it as what Dan was saying was that biochemistry was unimportant for that specific example because it was dealing on like a very broad level. Not that biochemistry has nothing to do with like replication or mutation. Would that be fair, Dan, or am I misinterpreting?
Yeah, I mean, the example was, and I use the beak example because it's things everybody's familiar with, but like, which I was chastised earlier for using something hyper-specific that no one's ever heard of. So I was using the beak example because I was illustrating the falsifiability, right, of the idea of evolution, using an example that everyone's familiar with. The falsifiable step was, is there a heritable variation? If the answer is no, then evolution is false. The mechanism of heritability is immaterial to that question as long as it's heritable.
I gotta get a drink, y'all. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah, now you leave. Right, okay.
That's where I was at that point.
Anyways, on that note, I think it would be interesting. I'm interested in what C Brown. What is your first name? Is it Charles? Is it Charlie?
It's C.
Just C. Okay. Well, I'm interested. I was listening to you earlier when you were talking about how a lot of these, like the nature.
Erica, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say I have an open invite to anybody here. See, Smokey, Standing,
good.
John, Jungle. If you ever want to talk, just let me know. I'm happy to host a conversation about this stuff, even if it's just about like how natural selection works. So I'm going to leave on that note. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Thanks.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah. Anyways,
From here, the discussion gets actually like fairly respectful, and you know, I am honestly always completely amazed by I don't know, like I guess Erica. I've never actually talked to her, so I don't know if I'm supposed to refer to her as Guts a Given or whatever. But I am amazed by her ability to diffuse situations. Like she can make, you know, people like G-Man and Nephilim free calm.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like the closest she's ever come to breaking was the Nathan Thompson debate, and even then, like she still did pretty well as not like getting pissed. I wish I had like 10% of that.
You're roboting.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. A little bit.
I was just saying I wish I had 10% of her ability to like diffuse situations.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't want that as a superpower.
Really?
No.
You know, I don't. You know, I feel like generally, if I can prevent people from becoming like, you know, getting like vitriolic and stuff, I have a good conversation. But once that snowball starts rolling, like if people are being an ass to me, then I can kind of be an ass back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I lost my temper with who the hell was it? Who was it? Was it Tony? Yeah, with Tony I did. Definitely lost my temper.
Deadly Dakota Rapper's here as well.
What's Smokey Saint doing? Still talking with Dan, or what's going on?
Jeez. Deadly Dakota Raptor.
He frequents Reddit, the r/debate evolution. So I've seen him there a couple times. And I think he's also, you've been on Dapper's stream once or twice, right?
I've seen him, I think, on Stanley's channel.
Okay.
Channel a couple times. Not sure.
This is a cool dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where does it go from here? I think.
I'll be right back. Okay,
Oh.
well, that's
Oh, he is there. Interesting.
go ahead. Tangelo, why don't you go ahead and say your
Okay, so creation. So Dan is there.
They're still there?
The Trinity solution is there, and Otangelo is there. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, my. Otangelo said he learned, self-educated, he learned genetics on the web. So
Yeah, that shows.
I can't really fault him too much for that. That's mostly where I am right now with genetics as well. Hey, Ian.
You know, the thing is, like, I can clearly see that.
That I don't know much about genetics, or
No, just like the way Otangelo tries to argue genetics is like, oh.
yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
I checked his site out today, and there's just a whole lot of incredulity. Basically, is about all it is.
I feel like it's really hard to make an argument from genetics from a creationist standpoint. I think Standing generally does the best job of it, but obviously still doesn't.
Oh, so Dakota Raptor's been on Dapper's channel.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to have a conversation, Deadly Dakota Raptor, on this channel sometime, just to talk, email me. It's speedofsoundofgravity@gmail.com. So always open to having conversations. And Ian, you too. I think I actually asked you an email or somewhere. Anyway, let's see. So where does it go from here? There's Smokey 2. I think Smokey kind of winds up at some point. And when did he come up with the stuff where he was really offended because Dan was criticizing their arguments? Was that earlier? Was that last week?
Yeah, I think that was earlier, like while Dan was still on.
Okay. So that was the whole thing.
Yeah. Like I said, once Erica sort of comes in, then, most everything like chills out. And they just have a fairly respectful conversation from there on out.
Yeah, there were just a couple of gems here with Maddox that I picked out. Let's see what I got. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Because I wanted to see if you really kind of maybe understood where I was coming from in part of the debate, and a little bit of a carryover from Dan's thing. Based upon your perception, what is a mutation?
To my knowledge, a mutation is simply a incorrect copying of genetic information that leads to one or more base pairs being not what they were in the original copy.
So when I was talking about the breakdown, the degradation of information when it's copied, like, should I have clarified and just said,
okay, Standing for Truth Brain Trust, they poke at genetics because I think that's they get all their information from AIG and ICR and Jensen and Tompkins and Sanford, and they've been able to obfuscate enough by learning the terms and learning the surface genetics that they're very, very difficult to deal with. They can gish gallop like crazy. I think that's why that's what their favorites are. They just learn the terminology, and they kind of commandeered science to work for them. So
yeah, I feel like the reason Standing especially uses a lot of arguments from genetics is, one, a lot of people don't really understand genetics, and two, as humans don't really understand genetics compared to a lot of other stuff, right? Like, we have a pretty solid foundation, but there's still things that surprise us all the time.
Oh yeah.
And so whenever we find something that surprises us, creationists are like, evolutionary trees completely overturned.
Exactly. Yeah, they can always find a new paper, where some in the abstract they'll say we were surprised or shocked, or whatever.
Yeah, because it's the bleeding edge of biology right now.
Yeah.
But what are you saying? Oh, but I
stream and I'll join and see what happens with it.
What's that?
Should I go into Smokey's stream and then you guys can review what's happening there?
Sure. Yeah. You want to go in?
Well,
that'll
what
be
are they
fun.
talking about?
Dan's
right now?
there, so I mean, won't be too horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to. Yeah, go ahead and do it. There's.
All right.
I guess I was going to pick on John about his lack of understanding of what programming is, even though he insists he's a programmer. He talks about full stack, basically a full stack programmer, and he just used the term wrong, and it was just. There's all of those things that indicate to me that he is a poser and not a programmer. And that irritates real programmers a lot. So, anyway.
All right, let me try joining and...
okay, where is it?
Just go to Smokey's channel and we'll see what happens there.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to catch up here, and I got to stop my share. Can you be on two streams at once, Immutable?
Smokey Saint.
What?
No, I don't think so.
Just go to the search bar and type in Smokey Saint.
No, I've got the thing. I just got to stop this screen and get another one up. So,
It's frustrating to listen to high-level genetics.
yeah. The thing is, they can get their little clutch to follow them because they sound so reasonable when they put this stuff together. But just streaming together the words, and it's just
that was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It takes a great deal of work to counter them because they will put up an abstract or a piece from a paper, and you've got to go hunt it up, and find it.
Yeah, Well, I think I think y'all must have talked about this like last week. Whenever, or not last week, but last time y'all live streamed and went over basically John being an asshole. But something I thought Dan said that was pretty important is that the creationists generally aren't framing their arguments in the best way if they're trying to appeal to evolutionary biologists.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's pretty obvious that that's not their goal. They're mostly trying to reaffirm their biases, and not necessarily their biases, but their viewers' biases, right? So they're not going after people like Dan. They're going after the people, once again, the fence sitters. I don't know. And then people freaked out about that, and that's when C. Brown got involved. And I think that's, I mean, I hate to say it, but it kind of proved Dan's point in a lot of ways, because C. Brown was saying things that no evolutionary biologist would take seriously.
Right. And Dan was trying to be nice and just trying to gently tell them that they need to change their arguments a little bit. I just put the link in chat, so if any of you guys out there want to join, go to Raptor or Sean.
Yeah.
But let's is Immutable in? Let's
Hold on, one sec.
Oh,
he's still here.
Yeah,
here.
One sec.
Oh, we got ready to go. We're just gonna.
Yeah, I think genetic entropy is not the best argument, but the way they frame it makes it so easy to debunk. They're like, oh, well, beneficial mutations never happen. Okay, well, here's a list of beneficial mutations.
Right.
Well, gain-of-function mutations never happen. Well, here's a list of gain-of-function mutations, right? Like, all you have to do is present one piece of evidence, and that completely throws away their argument. If their argument was, hey, well, deleterious mutations are far more common than beneficial mutations, so fixating deleterious mutations is probably inevitable, right? That's a much better argument. And then we have to get into like population genetics models and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that's a lot harder to debunk because, at that point we're talking in theory and, what our ideas and our current understandings of population genetics are. But, making these baseline assertions that are demonstrably not true, we have very specific evidence against it, isn't helping their case when they're trying to convince someone like me.
Right. Well, he's back. Did Smokey reject you?
He's muted for now.
You're muted.
I would have dealt with Otangelo had Dan stayed there, but
Dan just left as well.
Oh, he
Dan
did.
just left.
Oh, okay.
I'm
like,
oh, he left. So we got the Trinity solution, Otangelo, and whatever. So the other thing that's very, very difficult to debunk is the Y chromosome and mtDNA because of the way they're running models, and there are so many models and there are so many papers. When I started looking into genetic entropy, and when I started looking into mutation rates, it is such a mess out there as far as locking down mutation rates. But Dr. Dan did a really good thing on his site where he explained that we do not make assumptions about human mutation rates. We have information going back, I don't know how many, like thousands of years, and we can actually lock it in. And those are substitution rates, and they use these pedigree rates. And the pedigree rates are very, very, you have to get them from a somatic line. You can't go in and get the germline. So pedigree rates are used in forensics a great deal. And they're just confusing it. And Jensen is kind of the master at screwing things up. But
yeah.
Dakota.
Hello.
You watching our
how's it going?
Yeah, I was watching, decided to hop in and join y'all. Yeah, I've been Dan's done that argument for beating that argument down as a dead horse for years. It's been fun to watch, and it's neat to finally watch him on YouTube now.
Yeah. You've also been you're a Reddit mod, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not a mod, but on my other account, I've been pretty frequently posting on like r/debate evolution for a year or two. So or more than a year for sure. But
it's an interesting little community.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Yeah, I think it is completely different though to see it in like video format versus just these wall of text that he used to put out.
Yeah. Yeah, and him and Cel Cordova were basically duking it out on Reddit for quite a while, for quite a few years, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see some of that. I'm going to talk to Cel tomorrow night. We're having a little private chat.
Good.
Cel is all wet about fitness and Fisher Wright and a few other things.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Sal in a while.
No,
Not since his last debate.
He kind of backed off from some of this stuff. I think he found it unpalatable at some points, but he occasionally shows up on the live hangouts and stuff like that. But
okay.
But I've been trying to help him get right with population genetics.
Yeah. Chances are he's not watching this, but I think he did substantially better on the second debate with Dan than he did on the first one. I still don't think he won, but he did a lot better.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat someone who knows as much about the subject as Dan does.
Well, he made it clear in one of the pre-shows or after shows that his whole thing about fitness is that Sanford told him, don't let us define things for him. That he has to come with his own definitions. In population genetics, that doesn't quite work. You can't just I mean, if you got a model, you can't just start defining it as primo engineering. Their whole point was that, you know, man is this like perfect creature, or Adam and Eve were perfect creatures, and that's how they want to prove genetic entropy, that, you know, basically we've fallen down since then and all this garbage. So, but I mean, that's sort of where he's going with the fitness thing.
Yeah. Well, something I didn't quite understand, whenever he was talking about like Mueller's limit and stuff, he was saying that, you know, on average with Mueller's constraint, you're going to have like thousands of children or something like that. And that confused me so much, because wouldn't that same constraint have applied to like Adam and Eve? Well, I guess like Cain and Abel, because that's after the fall.
Well, they had no mutations.
That whole argument actually requires you to count as just any negative mutations. So using that Mueller change, it makes it about fitness, because you have to have X children to remove a drop in fitness from the next level. So it ends up being reproductive. It's just a distraction, saying they can't let any negative mutations in.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I mean, I'm just thinking like, okay, so you're talking about it like fitness, but the math you do shows that, you know, people are supposed to be having on average 1,000 kids. Your math is wrong, because that's not how it works. Like, just, you know, intuitively, like that can't work.
Yeah. Yeah, the population models that they come up with, they're misusing them. You can't use a population genetics model to prove something about extinction or any of that. You basically, you're exploring one part of the picture of how genetics might work. And the only way to prove what is going to happen with a species is to have a computer that is bigger than the entire species and the entire environment that the species is in, and to do a very, very complicated population model. So they misuse it. They pick one formula and they'll run with it, you know, and that's what Sanford and that guy that starts with a B, I forget what it was, that model that they came up with Mendel's accountant or whatever. Yeah, and it was just all pretty much bullshit, you know.
Yeah, it's fun. Mental accountant is fun because if you try to put numbers in that would cause to an increase in fitness,
you
have to put in absolutely ridiculous numbers, and it still causes the population to decline.
Right. I downloaded a couple versions from GitHub of that program, and I've been meaning to look into it. I think one was in C, and that would be the one I'd probably, and another one was, I think, in Golang, I think it was. And that one, and both of them have been abandoned, but I kind of like to look at the C. The way they did it, my first impression, it was well-documented code, but my first impression was something smells here. And I didn't quite have a chance to look into it. just the way they were setting up, because I did some stuff in Python where I started with, populations and trying to complexify or come up with a good complex model, with mating ages and variable death and all of that stuff. And what they were doing looked like it was way too simple for what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Ignores selection, ignores recombination.
Yeah.
Yeah. A video I had worked on, I actually finished the video, but it just didn't really do anything that I wanted it to do, so I decided against uploading it. It was basically me. I tried. So you remember Sal's whole tiramisu example, where it's like, oh, but the recipe changes and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to show why that would not actually apply to us, right? And basically what happened was I used his original constraints, and then everything crashed and burned. And then I tried to make something that applied more to us, but then, the species apparently became very prolific because, within 2 or 3 generations, and since I wasn't doing this with a computer program, I was doing it all by hand, it just became unmanageable because I had like 40 or 50 organisms I was trying to manage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only did it for like 5 or 6 generations, but whenever I had about a functional fraction of like 15% of the genome, and I had one recessive deleterious mutation, or one word was recessive deleterious, and then the other word was dominant deleterious, and I still didn't see any population decline. Hey, creation myths, Dr. Dan himself is here.
Oh my God.
Hi. Hey, Dan.
In the live chat, or
he is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the link is in the live chat if you see it.
Yeah.
If you want to commit, of course.
Yeah, you're probably tired. We didn't watch the end of your
conversation
with Smokey.
Angelo, the genius.
I was holding my breath waiting for it to go downhill.
I do have a quick question. I don't know if he's planning on coming in or if he's actually still watching. Oh, he is. Okay, cool. Then I'll ask him whenever he gets in.
Okay. I'll have to watch for that. But I looked at a few of Jensen's things and it looked like, he was like using these kind of simple Excel spreadsheet models. And I was like, red flags. I don't know. I wanted to reproduce them, but God, there's so much to do. And these guys have me so busy. Like I'm on a Maddox trend right now.
Something that I thought was pretty funny. Actually, I remember I went to my school's bookstore and I was just perusing the science section, and I saw Darwin's Doubt right next to like 3 other books from like my school's professors and stuff about evolution, and I was very surprised to see that in there.
You saw
Did you ask the bookkeeper why that was there, or?
Well, it wasn't even the library. It was like the school's official bookstore, and I was so confused as to why that was there. There's definitely not a market. Like my school is, 1, very bio heavy, and 2, it's like, the kids there are pretty smart. Like it's not. I don't think there's a very large creationist population at my school.
There's at least some.
Here's the man.
Hello.
What university do you go to, by the way?
I can tell you off air. I don't necessarily want to make that super public right now.
Oh,
that's fair.
Hi, Dan.
Hey.
Did you have fun?
I mean, that was super fun for me. I had a grand old time.
That's great. Yeah,
How's the rest of you doing?
Doing pretty well. Oh, I just have a quick question. Did you end up talking to him at all about like evolutionary biology, or just about like abiogenesis and stuff?
That was all abiogenesis. That's all anyone ever wants to talk about, which is fine as far as it goes. But I would love it if someone wanted to talk about like common ancestry, human genetics, but it always goes to abiogenesis.
Yeah.
Because I was talking, I was just talking about this kind of earlier, but I watched Dan's debate, not yours. I watched Smokey's debate prep for his debate with Erica the other day, and it seems like he has some pretty like fundamental misunderstandings about what evolution is and what it entails.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted to have a discussion with him about that, but I don't know. That's for a different time. Just because I don't. He was saying things that like the finches selectively bred themselves into separate niches, which is not how adaptive radiation works.
It's the other day when I was talking to John in the after show for that debate, he implied kind of the same thing, kind of flipping around how that process works, and basically implying that the environment induces some kind of adaptive change.
Epigenetics.
So
Which is
Lamarckian
not how that works.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm down here, I gotta like fix the lighting in this room. This is awful.
Walker just pulled a paper on that and found I think the gene that was modified.
Yeah, it's the ALX1 gene of that's what modifies to have the finch beaks change.
Yeah, and John was adamant that basically the beaks were going to change back and forth depending on the size of the nuts. Just from epigenetic
markers and stuff.
Shock or whatever. Which it's one of their favorites.
Well, even if that were the case, even if like in the specific case of the finch beaks, or I guess they're not finches technically, but the Galapagos finches beaks was entirely due to epigenetic change, having no adaptation like allele change would not be able to account for the diversity of life. Like epigenetics alone cannot account for the different number of alleles that we have.
You can get a lot of developmental complexity that way, but in terms of like just allele, like you need allelic diversity.
Yeah. It isn't going to stick.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. You need allelic diversity.
Yeah.
So we're officially supporting the position that an allelic allelic diversity that initially was 2, according to the Bible story, would not work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at some point I'm going to talk with Standing for Truth about this this created heterozygosity idea. No, the math doesn't work at all. It just there's no way to get the diversity that we see in the modern world from the bottlenecks that would be required for special creation and arc, post flood radiation.
Yeah, his idea of what an allele is just stunning.
Yeah, with Dan, before you do that, I've got a transcript of the Daddy, Why Did God Make Yaks with Standing for Truth when I was trying to talk to him about that, and it was clear that he had like some really strange idea about genes and alleles and how many thousands of variations he could get for one gene. And when I pressed him on it, he kind of like did his gish gallop away from the subject. And since then, he has doubled down and insisted that I was confused and that he knows.
It comes from, I think, Jeanson's book, Replacing Darwin, because Jeanson is big on this idea of created heterozygosity. But he does a really subtle hand wave that and he does it in math language instead of biology language.
Okay.
And what he says is he's going to be concerned with combinatorial diversity rather than permutational diversity.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is you can get a lot of different combinations via recombination, but at each locus, we're going to ignore the permutations. We're going to ignore the number of alleles. The problem with that is if you go with the creation and then arc story, you have at most 10 alleles per locus, and there are lots of human genes that have more alleles than that. So if you also buy the notion that you can't get new functional alleles via evolutionary processes, you can't explain through that model how you get the diversity that we see in the modern world.
Yep.
And then Standing for Truth on one of his hangouts, he said that for animals, God created tens of thousands of each species, right? He totally forgot about the part where there were only 2 by 2 going on the ark.
Yeah, he seems to think like there's millions.
Yeah,
of different alleles that are able to take part in this kind of like genetic shuffleboard.
And again, Jeanson gets this wrong too. He says in his book the relevant measure is the length of the bottleneck, the duration, not the size of the bottleneck. And that's just wrong. Yeah. A longer bottleneck of a given size will restrict genetic diversity more than a bottleneck of the same size that's shorter. But the size of the bottleneck sets the maximum number of alleles. It's a measure called the effective population size. And the arc sets the effective population size.
Yeah.
And you can have fewer alleles than that, but you can't have more.
Right.
But we observe a lot more than that. And that's and Jeanson, in replacing Darwin, just hand waves that away. I'm talking about combinatorial diversity, not permutations. Like, okay, but that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, in that same interview with SFT, we went on and on about the extended bottleneck, and I asked him basically, where did you get this idea of the extended bottleneck? And if there were 2 to 10,000 humans that crossed over, that doesn't strike me as a very serious bottleneck compared to what they had.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So that's
I don't know. It's interesting. They seem to mush a lot of stuff in their head, and then they have, epigenetics, and they have this, and now Maddox with his miRNA, and they mush it all together in their head, and they're like, okay, they have an intuitive feel that it could work, without actually working out how it will work.
Yeah.
There's one of too. Like Maddox has publicly shared like his folder on what he has like looked into. And the interesting thing is, like, I think he's looked into kind of the basic structure of like peptides. So you have, alpha helical domains and beta sheets, and they can combine and they can combine and arrange themselves to form, these different interesting kind of elaborate secondary and tertiary structures. But at no point in time does he seem to have an idea of what, like, the notion of chirality is. Like what exactly the difference is between like an L amino acid from a D amino acid, which is just fascinating.
I honestly don't know. So I've said this a bunch of times, but like I don't know, except in the most superficial way, like the people involved in these conversations. So like I don't know what anyone's background is. I don't know who's done what, but my impression is that there is a broad, I don't know if misunderstanding is the right word, but just we're diving right into the deep end instead of learning to swim first.
Yeah.
And like, we need to learn the basics of evolutionary theory, biochemistry, genetics.
Yeah, reading the papers before he read the textbooks,
Right, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, you have to read the textbook before you read the papers. Yeah. Exactly.
One thing that Sal has made known is that he didn't learn organic chemistry, but he learned biochemistry, which to me was just like a mental fuck. Like
I didn't get orgo until I took biochem, and then it clicked, and I thought, well, damn, wish I had taken biochem first. Man, that would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, I took. So the thing is, like, I took orgo the first time. Like when I took orgo 1, I got like a C, and orgo 2, I got a B. So I had kind of like a partial idea of what orgo was about, but biochemistry kind of like really helped hit it home for me.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of just like how amazing biological systems are in being able to achieve like some of these in an organic setting, like very difficult reactions, like converting a tertiary alcohol to a primary alcohol, or just these insanely difficult chemical reactions that need to occur to get to some, biometabolite or something like that.
I don't know. I kind of grew up with the organic chemistry, but not at the level that you do at Immutable, where you would actually pass a test, basically. But I started with organic chemistry at like 10 years old, and I just kept looking at the structures, constantly the structures. So I have like a million structures in my mind, and I think that made molecular biology really easy to pick up.
I mean, for me, and I don't know, like it's kind of hard to summarize like the two major points of orgo, if you can even call it that. Like for me, it comes down to like resonance theory and like stereochemistry, like is basically what orgo boils down to.
Yeah. And then Cell basically didn't know what methanol or ethanol was, and how do you do biochemistry or molecular biology?
Well, and not only that, but like, how do you appreciate like the mechanisms that are occurring in a biochemical system?
Yeah,
like the conversion of glucose to to all the other intermediaries it goes through to, I believe it's like glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate before it enters into the citric acid cycle and then goes to the electron transport chain. Like, how do you appreciate the complexity of that if you're not even aware of like even basic like functional groups or like their basic reactivity.
Yeah. Protein structure is pretty damn important.
Protein structure is cool though.
I don't know.
So something Andrew.
I just wanted to pop in and say hi. I am going to go to bed now. But
yeah, good to see you.
Good saying hi to everybody.
Okay, thanks for stopping in.
By the way, walking. I heard you're working on a video, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So whenever you.
All right.
Oh,
hopefully
Dan?
it comes out eventually, and hopefully Ian Chin's not watching, or else you just set him on to something.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
Dan, I've been reading that paper that you told me about.
Oh yeah.
And going through that and some other ones, and I think I know what his misunderstanding was, or what he thought he was, where he thought he had it got to for you.
Right, well, let me know because I still haven't figured it out.
I will. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all noticed this, and Dan could probably attest to this too. But like, I don't even think. I think the issue John has is kind of because he's cut out so much of like the work of studying like biology and chemistry and stuff like that. His arguments come across as being really horrible for the sake that, or due to the fact that what he has, like what he's learned, he can't go beyond that. Like he can't justify his position in terms of like more basic information.
Deciphering
I don't want to hypothesize about what anyone has and has not read or has not learned, but I've had trouble following the arguments. That I can say confidently. All right, so I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night. Deciphering John is like harder than reading any of these papers.
Like discovering a new language that was written, written like in crap. It's like
so the Rage is that the Raging Atheist?
Yeah.
Okay, he's in chat over on Smokey's channel, and John Maddox is there. Huh?
That's got to be interesting.
Oh,
that's going to be interesting. I wonder if Smokey's actually going to go in, or because that'll be hanging out for the ages if that happens.
Oh, if Rage went in, yeah, because those two have been at each other for a while. I don't know.
The thing is, like, it seems that Smokey was the one that really kind of set the ball rolling on that.
Yeah,
because he, like, Ronnie was trolling him, and just Smokey just made the ball like roll like so hard.
He turns up the heat really fast. You saw what he did with me. It was ridiculous. He just like turned on me like a snake. That's why I call him Smokey Snake. Because I mean, we were friends. We were chatting. We were having good talks. Like private chats and stuff. And in spite of our beliefs, we got along really well, and then all of a sudden, bang! It just went sideways. It's just like, whoa.
I like that I like the nickname that Ronnie has given Icky Taint.
Yeah,
I like that one. That's
I didn't even want to think about that. It's Monkey Snake is better.
I don't know. I think that's rather ingenious.
Yeah, it is. It is really genius, and Ronnie does that. So,
I mean, the thing is with Ronnie, like, he's not the most philosophically literate person. Like, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. But, like, he's honest. Like, he'll have an honest conversation, like, and clarify his position to anybody who asks.
Yeah.
And he's willing to change his mind on certain stuff, but it's just, he has that kind of, I don't know if it's abrupt necessarily, but just kind of very like brass personality to him.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh my God. What is, he's running a video. I see.
I do have a quick question though. I didn't want to waste Dan's time too much, but what is even meant by created heterozygosity? Do they mean that they have like every copy of the allele in their genome already?
That's exactly created heterozygosity.
So
that's really dumb.
Yeah.
What was that?
What the term means?
How do they even have like 14 alleles for something?
They proposed some sort of very bizarre reassortment that brings all the junk DNA that we currently have, kind of gets like shuffled in and shuffled back out, and that makes the alleles.
Yeah, gene conversion.
that's
is one of their
that would
favorite.
Careful now.
that would definitely
That would
show
do
up in phylogenetic trees, though. Like if we tried to establish anything, and we just had like completely different alleles chemically, unless God was trying to trick us and then surgically implanting different alleles. Like you wouldn't be able to build phylogenetic trees at all off
But
of
if they
protein coding regions.
If they made a case for that, they would be making a case for evolution.
They'd be
I mean,
making
for God's
predictions.
sake. I mean, if you can get that much diversity out of two people, then they're kind of making a case for evolution, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if all this shuffling happened, it had to be mutations.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I was going to say 2 videos I have coming up are one of them I've talked about it a couple times is Proboscidean phylogeny, which they believe the entire order Proboscidea is a single created kind. The order is like 54 million years old or something, and Erytherium, which is the oldest Proboscidean we know about, looked more like a walking manatee and was the size of a dachshund. And from that, we have mastodons, mammoths, gomphotheres, dinotheres, like all these other things. Are you going to tell me that all of that was just programmed into Erytherium? And then also another one that I've sort of been tossing around. I actually discovered this whenever I was going on to Vidalia 1998's podcast. But apparently coelacanths, the 2 species of coelacanths in the same genus, are divergent by about 40 million years, which means we're about as close to spider monkeys or capuchins as the 2 species of coelacanths are to each other. Yeah. And the single species, like I think the Indonesian coelacanth, within the species, there's 2 populations that have about a 13 million year split, which means that these 2 populations of the same species are more distant than we are to gorillas.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was obviously like a really cool fact. And it's also just like, huh?
Well, go ahead. But remember, since it didn't change physically or in appearance, it didn't evolve.
Yeah, well, I think that's an even worse argument. If we have so much genetic diversity purely from genetic drift and not anything morphological, then that had to have come over time because it's not experiencing selective pressures. Like, yeah, that's just true. It's math.
I'm gonna mute and step away for about 2 minutes. The third raccoon wave is attacking, and some of them they're up by my window, and some have glass cutters.
What?
So some of them have glass cutters and welding goggles, and I gotta go feed them. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah.
They're like raising raccoons.
Pretty much. Yeah. Have you watched any of Speed's other live streams and stuff?
A couple of them, not many.
Okay. Well, he apparently. Oh, hey, Brainbug. Welcome back. If you want to ever join, the link's somewhere up in the chat. But what was I gonna say? Oh, he has like an army of raccoons that he's raising. It started out he would just like feed 1 or 2 raccoons, but now apparently like a flock of 30 raccoons comes to him every night for him to feed.
Adorable.
It's an experiment in socialism, basically, and like the welfare state. I'm trying to find out if it'll level off at some point.
Have you tried learning their language yet?
I'm working on it.
You know, something that I've thought about, like as an experiment, whenever I'm in the real world. Have you ever heard of the silver fox experiment?
Yes.
Where they raise the fox with little ears?
Well, basically, it's an experiment in domestication. It started in the Soviet Union, and they basically they only bred the foxes that were most docile, and that was the only selective pressure, right? The most docile ones were the ones that were bred, and they started noticing a lot of other dog-like traits. So, like the foxes began wagging their tails whenever they saw people. They had floppy ears like dogs. Yeah. So these are obviously like, and then they did genetic analysis, and it's the same genes that have mutated. And I was wondering, like, how far down the caniform family tree does that work? So I've thought about seeing if I could like genetically modify domesticated raccoons. That'd be such a cool thing.
Raccoons, they could be evolving right in front of us. I mean,
they are.
They are incredible. They hang around humans and they run like on 2 legs.
Yeah. So there's some interesting studies about like urban evolution and stuff. And there was someone that gave a talk in my school that I went to see. But basically, they studied raccoons and their adaptations to urban environments. And the raccoons that lived in cities are substantially better at just generic problem solving and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting.
So I built this 2,400 square foot fence for my cats, so coyotes can't get them. So it has a roof and everything. Mm-hmm. And these raccoons, I've been working on this for 4 years. The last break-in was three weeks ago. And one time I caught them running upside down underneath my fence. And then they would go to a pole, and they would climb up the pole, go to another place. And then they went out a little hole. And it was like, holy shit, dude. It's like Cirque du Soleil. It's like watching trapeze. It was just amazing, some of the stuff they come up with. And then I watched them going along my fence searching for holes. They were checking the wires with their fingers, and it was just incredible. But watching them out in the yard, there are a number of different personalities. There are some that are skittish, and there are some that are very forward. There's one that learned how to spread himself out and lay on as much dog food as he could, and then eats it from under his belly, and he probably gets the most food. It's pretty incredible.
Huh. Yeah, wild animals are super cool. Something I've noticed, I have there's a pair of hawks that live in my backyard, like a breeding pair, and it's just really cool to watch them because I've seen them take out squirrels and stuff.
Yeah. They do. The crows are kind of interesting, and I hear them chattering. And about 10 years ago, I went out and I had a pellet gun, and I was irritated because they were eating my squirrel food, because I used to have a herd of squirrels too and a herd of turkeys. And so I shot the pellet into a tree, about 2 feet from the crow. I wasn't trying to hurt him. Mm-hmm. And since then, every time I go out there, they start chattering and they take off. They hate me now. And it's been 10 years. And it's like I've been trying to make friends with them, but I can't. They won't come back. And then when I'm taking a nap with the window open, I hear them out there with this weird language, and it's like I swear they're talking about me.
Wasn't that a study at the University of Washington where they found out that crows can recognize faces for generations after the original crows have died?
Yeah, and there was this one case where there was a field where a crow got killed by a tractor, and the crows would land, and there'd be this cutout. They wouldn't go in that field anymore. They were taboo. That's bad. So that's kind of the basis of superstition, where you if you go to a place where something happened, you'll get this weird feeling. Like there are certain highways I don't like to drive on. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it, it's because I've seen, three or four fatal accidents there. And you have this feeling. And we do a lot of stuff with these kind of deep superstitious feelings. And we are very tuned to that. Our brain works by intuition. Huh. And that actually ties in with this thing I was saying, where the creationists will come up with they'll half understand a bunch of concepts that seem like they're pointing in the right direction. And they'll get you get 5 or 6 of those, and they become tangled up in your head as an intuitive feel. And then you have a belief. You build a belief on that. And you never and if you entertain that belief long enough, it will become solidified. And it becomes what Damasio calls a somatic marker. It has there's a cluster of neurons that basically elicit an emotional reaction. And they become a belief, so that you'll have a belief about a certain thing. Like if you think you have a ghost in your upper bedroom, every time you go in that bedroom, you'll the hairs on the back of your neck will stand up, and it's a way our brain works.
Is that similar to the whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing?
Yeah.
So this thing where no, I didn't see Laura steal a bat,
Right.
Steal that bag from that store, and then so many times it gets told, everybody now knows of it.
Yep.
And after several years, nobody remembers what actually occurred, but people remember what they were told
right,
supposedly happened.
Yep. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, probably about 3, I went to my grandpa's farm and I saw a man-ape pig, and it was like this it was like, it looked like a man, except it was like an ape and it was a pig. And I did a little checking, and my grandpa had these boars, and they would sometimes jump up on the fence, and I think that happened to me. But in my little child mind, and in later alterations of the memory, I turned it into a combination of seeing gorillas on TV and the pig, you know, and a man, because it was like trying to jump up on the fence. And it's a real stunning memory. I mean, I swear I saw this thing, right? But I'm pretty sure that Grandpa did not have a man-ape pig. I don't know. I would have heard.
I had, like a different thing, but like when I was about, well, two things. Like when I was about 8, like I was baptized around that time, and like when they put you under for that kind of thing, like I swear, like for a moment there, like time froze and I saw like an aquatic fairy or something like that.
Yeah.
Like something I wouldn't describe like as natural at all.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing happened to me. It was like, you know, to this day, like I still, you know, I don't know what it was. Like it wasn't something human though.
Yep.
And I think it was more than likely a hallucination.
Yeah, and they become more and more powerful the more you run them. The more you recall the memory, every time you recall a memory, you modify it.
Yeah, actually, I saw a very interesting study about that. The more often you remember something, the more likely it is to be deviated from what actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's reasons why that makes sense too. I mean, probably because, I mean, like if you were to steal something, you know, accidentally, like you didn't know what something was, and just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to take hold of, you know, keep hold of this. Find out, like, oh, somebody else's. You might rewrite that story might be a rewriting of something you intentionally stole from somebody, but didn't feel comfortable confessing. You know, at the time you did it. Like the story might adapt itself to fit, you know, your internal perception of yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's like my Jesus experience when I was on this forum about maybe 10 years ago, and I was faking that I was a Christian for about 3 months. And so I had to talk like a Christian. So I kept, you know, falling right into it. And then one night while I was going to sleep, I was falling asleep, and suddenly I woke up with a presence above my bed. And it was like this powerful thing, like a brain, they call it a brain crash. And I got up, and then I started thinking about it. Well, I had this like weird feeling, and I was thinking about this Christian forum, and I got up and I logged off that forum, and I never went back because I was there as a sock puppet, you know, basically faking it. Why? And it freaked me out, so I never went back. And then later on, I started filling in this Jesus picture, which looked exactly like the picture of Jesus in the Presbyterian Church when I was 7 years old. So I mean, you can see what happened, and if I had been a believer, I would have swore that Jesus visited me, you know. And it's like, no, I've had other brain crashes where I've woke up and more bizarre things had visited me, or you know, whatever.
I mean, I've had friends before, you know, driving late at night or something, and just, you know, pull over or get like really close, like to a crash, and they claim, you know, like they look at the side of the street from them and they swear they see Jesus or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like
I have I guess I better not talk about her. I have an acquaintance that really believes in a lot of that stuff, and you hear her stories, and I have my stories, and I know how my story. I mean, like when I wake up, I've gotten in a habit of like my dreams, I watch them. So I try to get a subjective view of what's going on in my mind. And I find myself modifying my dreams and editing them. So I have this theory that we don't really dream in stories at all. We dream in nonsense. And then as soon as, if we wake up in the middle of a dream, there are all these remnants around, and we piece them together into a story, and that becomes our dream. And I think that happens in probably in a minute or two while you're waking up, and that's where you create your dream.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I dream about certain stuff, like it is, like while it happens, I mean, and I can barely remember my own dreams at times because they're so bizarre, but some of them are just like so freaking random.
Are you watching the chat over here? Smokey went to all caps. He's talking to Ronnie. Smokey's getting
Oh,
under.
really?
Yeah.
He went all caps. Ian Chin said that we should do a review of a creationist video from one of the big boys, and just tear down what it says.
Like which one?
His examples were Answers in Genesis, Institutes for Creation, like ICR, Kent, or Eric.
We can make that a weekly thing. That could be like a weekly content production type of thing.
Yeah,
because they all like with new bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think too many people go after like, I guess ICR or Eric. I personally would not want to do Kent because Kent just infuriates me.
He's too well. There's nothing there. It's too dumb.
With Ken Hovind, not Ken Hovind. God, please, not Ken Hovind. Oh God. With Ken Ham, is just the majority of his stuff is just not anti-Semitic, but like this whole 50s mentality of like, oh, bring back the days when we had oil companies and gays didn't have rights and all this other crap.
Yeah, we could go after like I've been signed up for I think ICR and Ken Ham and a couple of things, and they keep putting out these articles daily. And the last one was on why you shouldn't care about Black Lives Matter.
Oh my God!
And so, but occasionally from Evolution News or one of these, they'll have a science article, where they tear down some aspect of evolution, and we could go after them. That might be a little more, because we want to get a little more into the details of genetics. And now that I'm learning how to paste together movies and presentations, like I released the first video where I was actually able to put some illustrations up last week. I'm hoping to get a little better at it, but we want something that's going to have a little more content. Like I'm working on one on biosemiotics, and that's going to tie into John Maddox and information, basically. And that's going to be kind of a short one. And then we have a whole bunch of abio stuff that we can do. But I'd like to put out content that's a little more detailed, but I want to do it in such a way that anybody can understand what we're saying. So.
Yeah, that was sort of the goal for my channel as well.
Yeah, like going back to Ken Ham for a second, I have a feeling like his argument against Black Lives Matter is going to be, oh, well, the Bible, doesn't discriminate against race. And Jesus said that all people are welcome into the glory of God.
Something I really don't understand about like these kinds of movements is why do they have to also tie in like political basis, right? Like obviously most of their base are already like evangelical right wing, but that's something so interesting to me because like obviously nowhere in Genesis says that you have to vote for like fucking Donald Trump or something.
No,
that's the
like
thing.
God's candidate.
What are these things always go hand in hand? They're always, they're always right wing. Huh?
I think the reason for that, like, is in more fundamental circles, and my friends have, kind of clued me in with this too, is that fundamentalist circles kind of treat the Bible as like the practical guide to life, like the book that you look to for answers. Your girlfriend doesn't make you a steak for dinner? Go to the Bible and ask it what to do. It will give you an answer. These things like where they seem to believe like that the Bible is the end all be all solution for all the world's problems that are going to occur, and like as the result of that, the Bible speaks very harshly about gay people, for instance.
Yeah,
an LGBTQ folk. Well, and the immediate reaction for that, for people that are of that mindset, is society is trying to stray away from Christian values. Society is trying to, tear down the fundamental tenets of Christianity and of God's teaching. And that means being more conservative.
See my bugs?
Nice.
Thought I'd show you my bugs. And the beasts that I used to look at them somewhere over there. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, logical, plausible, probable is in the stream.
Yeah, he is. He's been in there for quite a while, and it's. I don't know. Maybe we should listen for a little while.
No, I'm getting
it's midnight here, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna say goodnight.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was good meeting you, my guy.
We're going to do this. We hopefully do this every Saturday night. And the idea is to rage a little bit at the frustration we feel over the week with the creationists and all the bullshit we run into. So if you send me an email, I'll put you on the invites. So
All right. Thank you.
okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Anyway.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I would love to do a breakdown thing. The only problem is I sort of encountered this whenever I was looking for a flat Earth video as well, is I feel like there's not enough videos with like decent content to make any sort of like live response to. Most of them you just have to like sift through all this fluff. Like, you know, I really don't care if someone starts quoting Bible verses or something. Like, okay.
I don't know. People like Vice Rhino and people like that have found some interesting folks to deal with, like creationist debunking videos.
Yeah,
that's true.
And then we have
stuff's out there. It's just kind of hard to find, and I feel like going to like Answers in Genesis, it's hard to find those. You know what I mean? Because Answers in Genesis has its tendrils out in so many other aspects as well.
And if we really wanted to expand the channel, like what we could do, and this would be hell. I would hate everybody for this. Would be so Kent Hovind's like seminar videos. They're like an hour long each or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just to go through those and do a debunking of them.
Yeah, although that's definitely been done. Have you seen Logic's series on it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, that was the original video series that made me leave creationism. So
really,
yeah, that one and Thunderfoot's "Why Do People Laugh at Creationists," and then also
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, and then Potholer. Yeah, all the old guys.
Good one that Logic did back. I think it was like his first debunking video, like for Sonnet for like creationism. I believe it was like debunking like John Morris Pendleton,
scientist engineer.
Yeah, it was this because I think he named it like "Hello, I'm a Scientist."
Mm-hmm. God, I remember all these videos.
Yeah. And he's recently doing one on well, not recently, like in the last 3 years, he's been doing one on Carl Baugh.
Oh.
Like for the International Creation Museum in Texas.
Yep.
And those were made like, I think in the 80s or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Standing for Truth's book, you know, which has all of his garbage in one spot. But it's
tell us about it.
It's kind of bad. What's that?
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Oh, the book?
Yeah.
It's all this preaching, and then it's punctuated with pictures of papers. Like he's making a point that all fossils are actually like fossils of
B, did you end the live stream?
What's that?
Did you end the live stream?
No, we're still live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're still live. But he has he's making the case that all fossils are basically deformed humans, and Neanderthals are deformed humans, and he puts a paper up that's an abundance of developmental anomalies and abnormalities in Pleistocene people, and he quotes that twice. He goes on, and then he refers to contested bones and humans or pre-humans, and he goes on about that. It's kind of boring. And I'm not sure exactly, you know, what we could do. I guess, you know, I downloaded the papers. So download the papers and look into what they really say. Yeah. And then go after his text. But I'm waiting for the PDF version.
You know, something I've never understood about the Neanderthals are like deformed humans or inbred humans. Something I've never really understood about that argument is that we have the Neanderthal genome sequence. We have their entire nucleotide by nucleotide genome. so we know that they fit outside anything that we would consider an anatomically modern human.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense. Like
he just ignores that part.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. Oh, I did meet Aaron out in Texas, and he was the nicest guy.
Really?
Yeah, he is very, very nice.
No, I would definitely be like open to talking to him or something like that. I haven't. Yeah, when I've watched his what's that one series that he has where he goes through human phylogeny, history of classification or something? That's a good series.
Classification of life.
Yeah, whenever I was coming out of creationism and stuff like that, I didn't really watch his videos too much, just because he is kind of mean. Like he's not afraid to roast people. Like Logic will roast people usually, but he won't roast people for being religious. You know, he'll say like, "Hey, you're being stupid about this belief." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know, people shouldn't drive.
Maybe I haven't seen enough of Aaron Ra, but he seems to like really like hammer down on people just like when they're being intellectually dishonest, or just when they're being like retarded and dishonest.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't drive while drinking, and Aaron Ra sometimes shouldn't talk to creationists while drinking. He's a little rougher. When he's sober, he's pretty cool. You know, he's pretty mild.
Yeah, no, I think he's probably a pretty cool person. I'd love to meet him, like that kind of thing. But it's just like at the time that wasn't really, I guess, what I wanted to see, because I felt like, you know, I know myself, and if someone's, I mean, everyone does this. But if someone's being, I don't want to say like vitriolic or like hateful, but if someone's being mean or I guess rougher, then you're more likely to go into a defensive mode and not critically analyze anything that they say. You know what I mean? Like if someone's just cussing me off, I'm not going to think about what their actual arguments are.
The thing is, though, and like it's something that I've noticed, like that Maddox and Smokey like fail to, or seem to fail to realize. It's that like when I go harder on people, or when I start being less generous with people, it never seems to occur to them like to internalize this idea of like, well, maybe it's something I'm doing. Like, well, maybe this person is trying to get me to see something. Like they go immediately to like they're triggered aspect of it, and it's like, no, not necessarily. Like when I always will begin a conversation with somebody as generous as I can be. But if you start interrupting me, or if you start, just being an ass, then I'm not going to give you like the same luxury as I did earlier. Like I'm going to be more aggressive in terms of like making my points.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair position.
Yeah, like in stopping you when you try to make a point that's just asininely wrong. And I think part of it too is like, I don't want to say like all creationists can't critically think, but I haven't seen it too much like where creationists will like self-reflect on the types of arguments they make, or really take a moment to step back and kind of ask the important question of, well, if I'm getting like this negative response from people, maybe like it's something. Okay, maybe these people just all are haters. Maybe they just don't like, they don't want to worship God or whatever. Okay, maybe that's the case for some people. But, like on modern day debate, like we're standing for truth, when you have hundreds and hundreds of comments, like that are all kind of unanimously agreeing with each other on the same point,
right?
That, that has to stop being a coincidence at some point. Like at some point, you got to internalize that as being, there might be something more than, what I originally thought. There must be a different aspect to this that I just, was oblivious to or wasn't open-minded to.
Yeah, that's sort of, if I ever found myself to have a belief where I contradicted, like, essentially every single authority on that belief that has spent their lives studying it, has spent 20 years getting a degree for it. If I ever found that was the case for one of my beliefs, I feel like that would be a cause for some serious self-reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that a little bit with consciousness, because I have a pretty kind of odd belief about consciousness, or but still, I found a big nest of people that do agree with me. So I don't know.
I mean, what I try to do, like, especially with fields that I'm not like as involved with, partially because like my education isn't like my educational background isn't like that of a physicist or geologist or somebody like that. What I like to do is like, I'll go to like the person's blog or like their website. So like Sean Carroll is a cosmologist and physicist, and he likes to talk about, the Big Bang and quantum mechanics and quantum gravity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I like to try and read like some information, be that textbooks or be that, articles, and, maybe I can sift through the abstract or introduction of those articles because I can't understand like the technical literature. And I usually try to do that like for a few different people because, okay, a lot of people in a field, like even in chemistry or, menial things like, just like chemical reactions or stuff like that, people are going to have different opinions. People are going to have different perspectives and different views on like where the field is, or if it's progressing or if it's not progressing. And I try to get, a fair shake from people on each side of the fence to kind of understand like what the modern view is. Because it could be, and it most likely is the case, that my my perception of a field, like general relativity or quantum mechanics and stuff like that, is wrong, and that I need to look into something more, or I need to, find a way like to make what I believe more realistic towards what's being discussed. Because in my view, like I want to have as accurate as beliefs as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I also want those beliefs to be based upon evidence.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's sort of where I stand on a lot of this stuff as well. Like, and even then, like on things that I'm not very well versed in and things that I'm not super interested in pursuing, like, geology generally, I get the baseline of it. I know enough about it from what I need to. Sorry, Colton, I'm not super just like genuinely interested in it. Like it's fine, right? So at that point, I just sort of go with whatever the consensus is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to at some point.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with deflecting to people who know more than me.
Yeah.
No, I mean the thing is, like, I'm like a little interested in geology, but the reason I actually got more interested with it was when you realize, like, after taking genetics and stuff like that, that okay, evolution. If you just were to look at things like from a molecular and biochemical level, you don't get a complete story like of the history of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems kind of to be the case that over times, like this allelic frequency that's in a population can diversify and shift and essentially create this, vast infinity or, seeming infinity of possibilities, like for potential ancestors and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, it kind of would be hard to tell actually, just from a genetic standpoint, where things what came from what did what.
Yeah.
But yeah, and when you look into geology and things like that and paleontology, it kind of fills in that gap. It fills in this explanation of like how the history of Earth as a system all manages to contribute and influence like the evolution of organisms on Earth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I do have like a really big interest in things like geology and how, biogeography affects the diversity of life and all that kind of stuff. Like I absolutely love paleontology. But when I say that I don't really care too much for geology, I mean, like if a geologist tells me that this is how this specific formation came about, I'll just be like, okay, I am not super interested in like pursuing how this specific shale, unless I was, I guess, studying the ecology of how that shale formed. I'm not.
Yeah. And
like that's the point where I deflect. You know what I mean? Like I just sort of trust that the geologists have the rock layers, right? And then I'm interested in what's in those rock layers. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the name is for.
Well, I got interested in geology, so I bought a couple of books on lithification and stratigraphy or stratification. And because of talking to Nephilim, and I realized I didn't know a lot. So then I started looking into it a little bit. It's pretty fascinating, pretty cool. And the other interest is for a bio, because it connects up geology. But the really interesting thing is Nephilim's big thing, or the creationist big thing, is that there's these folds, of rocks that are folded, that they would have broken if they were hard when they folded. But the interesting thing is that there's something called gneiss, Gneiss, and it folds, and it has crystals in it, like quartz crystals, and they also bend. So how does mud bend hard quartz crystals? Which is kind of interesting.
I found the thing I was wanting to reference, and that is especially like geology, they have this document, and you can find it, or I can send it to you guys if you want it. But it's called the Geologic Column, and the most recent version of it is 2012. The 2020 version isn't out yet. But it goes through like some of the dating methods that are used for a particular strata. It goes through like what's known about it, like certain mysteries like that are surrounding like certain layers and all this other stuff. And it's actually quite interesting because
So what is reasons in science? They were looking at this paper here, and it's let's see. It's the astonishing language is written on microtubules, amazing evidence of design. And so what is reason and science? And for you motion mag? I don't know what that is. That could be an ad. But anyway, I just pulled it up, and there's a link in. I put a link in chat right here.
It looks like this is some sort of forum, or is it just a really old website? Nope, it's just an old website.
2015 was when this article was written, I guess, and they were looking at
the one
it
that you posted.
Yeah, they were looking at it on Smokey's channel. And I'm not sure what the website is. Reason and Science.
Well, I mean, the top banner says "Intelligent Design: The Best Explanation of Origins," so I'm assuming it's non-biased.
Right. Yeah, pretty non-biased. Anyway, they're going on about microtubules, which is one of my favorites. I have to look at this, but John was just showing it to everybody. I think kid from, I'm not sure if it was John or Otangelo, but anyway.
Why are microtubules one of your favorite?
They have a lot to do with neurons and how things are transported in neurons.
Okay, they do
transfer
stuff in terms of like self-assembling and transporting, also in terms of like transporting like various materials that need to. Yeah. Another really interesting protein for that matter, or family of proteins, are the myosin and I believe they're called the myosin and denisin families.
Oh, Denian, or is it
Denisin?
Denisin, okay.
Yeah, they're essentially what they are is they're these proteins that essentially like will walk across like microtubules.
Yeah.
And pull across like protein that. They're essentially like the trucks that kind of run across like the highways of these microtubules to transport materials from one cell to another.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, those pictures that they always show of the little walkers on the microtubules.
I've seen a really like fucked up animation of it before that they showed in our bio class. It was like a legitimate animation though. It was like they had legs for some reason.
Yeah, I believe it's done by iBiology. It's a YouTube channel.
Yeah, Harvard was doing those for a while. They first appeared in Ben Stein's movie. He kind of made it popular.
Wow.
But, yeah. What was it? Expelled, that movie?
Yeah.
So
no intelligence allowed or whatever.
Yeah, all this amazing stuff, and it's kind of an interesting mechanism. But in the brain to get the neurotransmitters out to the synapse, microtubules are very important, and it also creates a structure of the axon, and so that's why and they're interesting because at one end they're being torn down, at the other end they're being built constantly, and they're constantly replenished. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is rather interesting because there's other, like, what's curious to me, and I'm gonna have to look into some of the stuff, but just like the whole like new, like, I guess, families of RNAs that are being described and discovered, because like there's been an explosion in the past like 20 years just regarding like the diversity of RNAs and the functions that they have.
Yeah, and these miRNAs are pretty cool too. There's huge families of them, and they have a massive effect on regulation. But John Maddox, I think I just want to listen to this for a second. Is that okay?
Yeah,
sure.
And then you want to call it after that? Or?
Yeah, probably call it after that.
I want to see who's talking.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you shared the audio.
Oh, I did? Wait a minute.
I'm not hearing anything. Are you hearing anything?
I'm not hearing anything. Uh-oh. Speed.
Not again.
I mean, I've had this shared the whole time.
You silly goose.
Oh, come on now. I've had this shared the whole time. The audio went away.
No, it didn't.
It did go away.
Don't blame this on the audio.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was a malfunction of the program.
It is a Yes, the program. It mutated.
Always the program fault, isn't it?
Oh.
Program mutated. That happens.
You could hear it.
Saturday night open mic challenge Smokey. Yeah, for some reason it seemed really weak. I'm not sure why. Okay, here it is again. See if you can hear it.
Oh man,
it's
good. Very interesting listening to the interaction with Dan earlier because he speaks with such confidence.
Right.
I really missed John. That's why I want to play this because I saw that he was talking, and he's my bro.
Did you even know that this is what he was talking about?
All these.
I figured. Well, he came on right after the paper. No, I didn't know. No, this is a surprise.
Things
that
are
is
just
perfect
so,
timing.
It is.
I know they're difficult to understand, and to appreciate and to accept, but
just accept it.
We have all this, and it's like, so you've just stated multiple times that yes, the probability is just like nuts. You've agreed that the improbability is insane.
No, he didn't.
Yet somehow it must have happened.
Right.
There must be a option for this, and the whole deal of the simultaneous actions like that to circumvent the improbability. I cannot tell you the number of websites and tangents I've heard from atheists and whatnot that try to
name
simultaneous actions. Basically, like if you have billions and billions of lottery tickets.
Yeah, this is why I tried saying to Tony in the comment section of that one video, and he just said like I think his response was, copy and pasted from the rest of them. But if you have a 1 in a million chance of something happening, but you're repeating that dice roll 100 million times.
Yeah.
Like the chance of it not happening is almost infinitesimally small.
Yep. Yeah, and that was my point for Tony with the pudding. We're back to the pudding, but he was saying the pudding is in Tony's head. He was saying that you have to take this combination of chemicals that was on the earth back then in one experiment and basically wait for it to turn into life. Well, no, there were like quadrillions of experiments going on. It wasn't one big homogeneous pudding. So I'm going to call him Pudding Head from now on, Tony, instead of Pointy Head. So
still to make that argument.
No,
that is such a dumb argument.
Yeah,
it's so dumb and so outdated. I don't understand how
what's
a
dumb
PhD
about it? It's
is still bringing that one forth.
It's dumb because Maddox said it was dumb.
Yeah.
basic appreciation of probability theory or chaos theory would really, it's kind of
why are you bringing up chaos theory and probability theory when you don't understand jack shit about it?
No.
Because okay, John, please. I'm done listening to John, but at some point I do want him to explain, like, why multiple processes occurring at once, like why this notion of they have to be sequential to each other is a necessary idea. Because there's nothing chemically like that forbids multiple reactions from occurring at the same time. Like there is nothing at all in chemistry that forbids that. So I'm genuinely curious as to what his objection, like to what John's objection is actually going to be. Because it's just, plus the way John just described Dan's position it was completely false.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't acknowledging the huge probabilities. He was saying, yes, there's large probabilities, but they're not as large because they're not sequential processes. These processes are occurring in parallel, not occurring. They don't have to occur sequentially to each other.
Yeah, it's all about constructing that network or that landscape where things can move from one rock to the next. That's how you cross the stream. And they think they know what the stream looked like. They think it looked like pudding, and it's like, and that was my point, that they're so unrealistic. And then they think that somehow the ribosome has to assemble right away. And like we have to have that ribosome. It's just like,
that's the thing. It's like John seems to think that without the ribosome, that these proteins are just never going to have function, or that they're never going to be able to do anything.
Yeah,
and it's just a matter of but proteins have intrinsic chemical activity. Like the way they fold, even if it may not be the most efficient thing in the world, they're going to have some catalytic efficiency towards some ligand that binds with it. And once you have a genetic system that can allow that information to be stored, again, I'm using God. But,
so how do we create a video that clearly explains what abiogenesis research really is about and what could have happened back then, and
I would say need to make like a multiple series part on it, like maybe a 3-part, I don't know however many parts that are needed, but kind of going over like what basic abiogenesis is about first.
I'd like it to be as simple enough for a creationist to read it.
Well, yeah, I think the first video in that series would need to be about like what abiogenesis is not.
Yeah.
Like what the theory does not state or what it does not try to prove.
Yeah, but I kind of want to get to the point where I explain like what this network model is and how big that system was. Like,
oh yeah, it's tremendous.
One time I was reading about just the number of the amount of dust from meteorites that hit the Earth, and it was like this unbelievably huge number. And I thought, wow, there's something there. I mean, that is part of the Earth now. And there's just all these details, but the network basically of how things could have begun, and getting rid of this idea that we had to have those 20 amino acids and they couldn't be a racemic, there had to be a chirality problem, all of that stuff. And Dan brought up the thing where there wasn't necessarily cell membranes, that it was a different kind of world. It was more, rather than cells, there were chemicals, and they were the life interacting and naturally selecting, which is very interesting. So,
well, and the thing is too, like there are already like various systems like of what are called lipid worlds. So, just very basic systems of lipids that the goal of these systems, like chemically, what they want to do is they want to minimize their surface area to volume ratio.
Yep.
And they compete with each other in order to kind of obtain that kind of to fulfill that requirement. And now, like, there's been some research, I think it was like 5 years ago, they were going to consider, and I think they're doing it now, doing research like with different types of lipids to see, okay, if you have different types of lipids that compose a membrane, because we know that modern cells have, bilipid layer membranes, how does that change the dynamics? Like, what does it do to the structural properties, like in terms of the cell wall? How does this, how does this influence, competition between, these protocell environments?
There's just so much.
And it's just, the thing is, like with Maddox, he is willing to throw that all away if it means holding on to like what he personally believes about the topic.
Well, he's got his little calculation that that he got out of the back of the Kunin book. I was so excited when he was doing that, and I thought, wow, he knows how to use a calculator. And then I realized he was copying the numbers out of the back of Kunin's book, and I had the book sitting on a shelf right where I was watching them. It's so sad, but I don't know. I'm burning out.
I am too.
I was going to make a comment about abile, but I don't know. Oh, I wanted to. I want papers on racemic mixtures of amino acids and what kind of possible structures they can form. Because I caught something somewhere where it suggested that rather than alpha helices and beta sheets, that there may be some other structures that are possible.
Could be.
I would like to know more about that.
I think
so many papers.
I think the larger consideration, though, is that when you talk about organic chemistry and when you talk about like the types of molecules needed, okay, look, a lot of the amino acids, I believe 12 of them are non-polar and 8 of them are polar.
Mm-hmm.
There are like hundreds of millions of non-polar chemical compounds that can be formed from relatively simple organic reactions.
Yeah.
And polar molecules are just as abundant. It doesn't seem to be the case that, there's a specific reason for the ones that we have being selected over any other. Like it.
Yeah, when they make the point that, you do a bunch of these reactions and it ends up being tar or asphalt, if you actually look into what's in tar and asphalt, there are some incredible structures in there. And it's almost like a whole zoo on its own. And so when they say asphalt, I get excited because coal and asphalt have some remarkable ring structures in them, and just this unbelievable diversity of chemical structures. So it's exciting.
Well, and also, I mean, as kind of a touching note, like there is research that's occurring on this notion of like reactions like that drive their own catalysis. So the basic idea is you have reactions, like particularly with amino acids or nucleotides, that sometimes the product will favor its own catalysis. So sometimes the product will be more beneficial to causing the reactants to make more of itself. But sometimes the product isn't that stable and it won't favor its own catalysis. Yeah. And the idea is that if you introduce a small bias into the system, which is what Dan's point was.
Roboting. Is that?
Huh?
You're roboting real bad.
Oh, really? He was fine for me.
Oh.
Wow. I wonder if it's my system.
Well, okay.
Your internet's about to go out again.
Yeah, but so what they were talking about is like once you introduce a bias into the system, that you have an extreme abundance of the type of molecule that favors its own catalysis. And currently there are searches for organic systems that have this type of capability. But for prebiotic systems, there isn't any yet. But there are potential ones that are being discussed. And it's just, that in itself is interesting. Like, it's so much more interesting to see, these review articles and what they're proposing, rather than, this kind of oversimplistic point from Maddox and, what they think about abiogenesis.
Yeah. So Erica's still over there talking to him on Smokey's channel.
Wait, really?
Reason, yeah, trying to reason with Otangelo.
Huh.
I noticed. Yeah. And she's being, sweet as ever, just nice, getting along with them. We could use her superpowers. Anyway, I think it's time to go have some stew and watch some mindless television.
Warrior Nun? Or did you finish it? I said Warrior Nun, or did you finish it?
Oh, I did. And it ended with ended right in the middle of yeah. Did you watch it?
No, I haven't. I've been pretty busy recently.
I thought it was pretty watchable. I ended up binge watching it because the main character was just so interesting, and then watching the character arc was pretty good. So it was easy to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I'm going to do tonight, what I'm going to watch tonight, but I need to stay the hell off YouTube for a while.
Fair.
What's something else?
I think you just need like some basic content production and just some, just some fairly like basic level information to go over. Because we got to make this information in a way that it's comprehensible to these creatards.
Yeah, I did a couple of things today. One on biosemiotics, and the audio was real bad. So I threw it up there, but I'm going to take it down and redo it. And also I made mistakes. And I did another one on, I think it was on this business of ribosomes or tRNA air repair. I just started explaining the cell, in a kind of simple overview. And I did it on that sketch pad. That one came out pretty good. And I've got to learn more about iMovie, and then I found out my audio tracks they really sucked. So I started messing around with a couple of different audio processors and stuff. So my problem is that I should just start putting out the crap, even if it is crap for now, and slowly climb up that pole to higher ground, higher production values. But
something I sort of learned is that I actually enjoy like the video editing process. Like I enjoy making stuff in GIMP, and that's something that definitely helped me like learn more about it and then do better. I guess I don't know how to explain it, but
so this Reasons, what is it called? Reasons and Science Cats board. They've got a whole bunch of articles on it. Does God exist? Origin of God, and I guess it's a forum with a whole bunch of stuff. This is a good source for creationist stuff. We could look at some of this stuff. Anyway.
I still think the Talk Origins thing is a really, like this, despite it being
that's a good resource, yeah.
Outdated, I do think a modern version of it like should be recreated.
Yeah, it's outdated because the two guys that did it died in like 2000 and 2004.
Really?
Well, we're people, so
yeah.
Talk Origins 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yep.
Oh God.
Okay. End this thing.
Okay, this has been fun.
Yep. It's been good.
Good night, Ian. And Brain Bug, if you're still around, or anybody that's still watching.
We have 6 people, so.
Oh, really?
Impressive, isn't it? Yeah.
Who are they? Anyway, good night, guys. I'm going to end the broadcast.
All right.